Good morning, dear colleagues. Welcome to our first Horizon implementation. My name is Matthias. I am director here in the European Commission and have the pleasure to lead the Common Implementation Center that is the host for the event today. Building on the success of our former coordinators days, we are launching today this first edition of what we call Horizon Implementation Days. We think they are more modern, more client-centric. We aim to reach a wider audience, and we are covering all areas of implementation of the program. We will host from now on, instead of 2 webinars per year, 3. There should always be one on finding research opportunities and submitting a proposal. That is today's event. Secondly, there should be a module on grant agreement preparation. And then the third one would be on grant management. This year, all 3 events will be held in October. Okay. But then also on the 17th and 24th of October. We would be very happy if you would attend all 3 of them. Now, for future events, they will be announced as also asked in the news and events section of the funding and tenders portal. We will also contact our national contact points and research organizations so that they can spread the news. Now, the participation in the Horizon Implementation Days is, of course, free of charge and unrestricted. Everybody is welcome, and please spread the news so that we have a really wide audience to benefit from these events. You can watch the event either by clicking in the Funding and Tenders portal in the Research and Innovation Community platform, where you need to register for the event. Back to that, and of course, secondly, also in our YouTube channel, New Science and Innovation. What I would encourage you to do is really to sign up in the Research and Innovation Community platform to become a member. Why is that? I think it is good for you because you can browse events and materials of your interest in the members-only areas. You can register for all the events to come up, engage and project new ideas. You can chat with members of the community and build new connections. Then what is important for us, that you can complete also the satisfaction survey for each of the individual webinars. So your feedback, your suggestions for improvement are important to us. We really hope that the information provided today and in all the future editions of the Horizon Implementation Days will help you to better understand the program, the structure of the program, the rules for participation. We think that will help you to prepare and submit a proposal. It should help to conclude grant agreements more smoothly. And then last but not least, also to manage the lifetime period when to benefit from it properly and avoid any unnecessary damage. So for the first implementation day today, we have prepared the following agenda. We will start with a general overview on Horizon Europe. We give you an important update on the Association of the United Kingdom to Horizon Europe. Then we will go into how to search for partners, the funding and tenders portal. And then the last section will be on the submission and evaluation of proposals, the proposal template, basic principles, and then also evaluation criteria. So we would welcome your questions through the Slido tool during the event today. The code that you will see then in the screen, which I can already announce, is in capital letters Horizon 1. No space in between. One word, capital letters, Horizon, and then the number 1. Please, when you are in Slido, check also the questions that other participants in today's event have introduced, because you can like them, you can vote them up or down. We will then reply to those questions in function of popularity. So I wish you a lot of, I hope, fun today. I wish you success with your proposals. I will now hand over to my colleague Peter HAERTWICH, who will make the first presentation and share for the rest of the room. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Hello, good morning also from my side. I will start giving a presentation that is in the first instance addressed to newcomers, to people and colleagues who have not so much been in contact yet with our program. So Horizon Europe, what is it? It is the biggest research and innovation funding program that we ever had in the European Union. It is open for participation from basically any kind of entity or person. And it covers the years 2021 to 27. It is a very big program, and this comes, of course, with also a number of sections in that program, and I will try to very briefly guide you through the structure of the Horizon Europe program. You see on the slide that there are actually two big sections. The one is Horizon Europe itself on the left-hand side at the top, and the other one is the so-called Euratom program for research and training. Starting with Horizon Europe, the non-nuclear part, so to say, this is subdivided in two so-called specific programs. On the left-hand side, you see the specific program that is called the European Defence Fund, which deals with defence research and development, where there are research actions and development actions to be funded. The biggest part of the budget goes into the other specific program, which is the specific program implementing Horizon Europe and the European Institute for Technology. This part has an exclusive focus on civil applications, and it is subdivided in 3 pillars. Pillar 1 called Excellent Science, Pillar 2 Global Challenges and European Industrial Competitiveness, and Pillar 3 Innovative Europe. In Pillar 1 you have by and large the bottom-up actions that are also more at the level of fundamental research and low technology readiness level. So we have here the European Research Council that funds excellent individual researchers as principal investigators. We also have the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, which are the fellowship actions for funding the transnational mobility of researchers doing a fellowship in another country, and we have the support for the research infrastructures. In Pillar 2, we have, so to say, the thematic areas of the program, where we publish calls in predefined subject areas, and this Pillar 2 is again subdivided in so-called clusters, in thematic clusters. And you have the list here. I will not read through all them, starting with health, culture, civil security, and so on and so forth. So under these clusters, the calls for proposals are published, and you have to come with proposals that fit the description of the calls in our so-called work programs. Below this, you have also a line called Joint Research Center. The Joint Research Center is a network of research institutes owned by the European Union, where there is direct funding of the actions of these institutions. And then I come to Pillar 3, which is called Innovative Europe. And of course, one of the main ingredients here is the so-called European Innovation Council that funds innovation actions and actions in particular targeted at SMEs and other very innovative companies. There is also support actions under the European Innovation Ecosystems. And we have the European Institute of Innovation and Technology that also funds research and innovation actions in the so-called knowledge and innovation communities. Finally, Euratom, there are actions on nuclear fusion and on nuclear fission, and again the Joint Research Center has also a direct part. Completely at the bottom, we have another chapter which is called Widening Participation and Strengthening the European Research Area. This is providing supporting actions in order to increase the research and innovation performance of the countries that are, in a certain sense, have to catch up, the so-called widening countries, and there is a list of these countries that are concerned. Here is the budget. It is 95.5 billion for these 7 years until 27. It is by and large subdivided into the 3 pillars, meaning the excellent science gets a quarter of it, the global challenges, including the clusters, the thematic areas, gets more than half, and then the Innovative Europe pillar gets 13.6 billion euros. And the rest, 3.4 billion, is for widening and the European Research Area. Just some more words on the European Innovation Council. So this is really support to innovations with a breakthrough and disruptive nature. And 70% of the budget here is earmarked for SMEs. In this Innovation Council, we have collaborative actions under the Pathfinder. These are research and innovation grants, rather smaller grants. And again, SMEs are very much encouraged to participate. Similarly, this is for the transition grants, which go closer to proof of concept and exploitation. And then the real novelty is the so-called accelerator, where we fund not only grants, but also investments via the EIC fund. That means equity and loans to enable, in particular, SMEs and startups to develop new markets and to grow as fast as possible. Another important aspect of Horizon Europe are the so-called EU missions. These are big actions bringing together many projects, trying also to involve not only the budget of Horizon Europe, but also of other programs and even national funding. It is a portfolio of actions across discipline to achieve a predefined, bold and inspirational and measurable goal. For the moment, we have 5 missions, 5 mission areas, and in each of these areas there is currently 1 mission. Discussions are going on in order to possibly define the one or the other additional missions. So you see the 5 thematic areas, the mission areas on that slide. I will not read through them. Another aspect of Horizon Europe are the so-called partnerships. So we do not only fund actions in very open calls, but we also have partnerships with member states, with industry, where we define together what is supposed to be funded and what is the strategy for the coming years. And we have 3 types of these partnerships, the so-called co-programmed, the co-funded, and the institutionalized. For the co-programmed, the partners, meaning the Commission and in particular industry, come together and define in a certain area what needs to be funded, and on this basis normal calls for proposals are established, and then everybody can apply. For the co-funded partnerships, we have to have a joint program that is agreed and implemented between the Commission and, in the first instance, member states. So there is both parts put funding on the table, and then the implementation is done together with the members, for instance, member state research agencies and so on. Again, these calls are then open to everybody, and everybody can apply. The third type of partnership are the institutionalized partnerships, and this is in a certain sense the closest form of cooperation, where legal entities were founded for each of these partnerships that run these partnerships. So this is based on a long-term dimension and the need for high integration between the Commission, industry, and the member states. What is also very important is that Horizon Europe is not just for institutions in member states, but we reach far out also to the rest of the world. And one important aspect here is that there is already a big number of countries that are fully associated to Horizon Europe. That means their research institutions, industry, and so on can participate in Horizon Europe on the same conditions as institutions from the member states. And these are third countries with a good capacity in science, technology, and innovation, and also taking into account the objective of driving economic growth in Europe. Apart from this, Horizon Europe is also open to third countries that are not associated. And there are different conditions depending on the group of countries. Of course, in all this international cooperation strategy, we have to balance out the openness to international participation with the protection of the EU strategic economy. In the later talks, in particular the one on submission and evaluation, colleagues will give more details on which country can participate under what conditions. Another important aspect is the open science approach. So we promote open science across the whole program, meaning that, for instance, the open access to publications is mandatory. So all publications that are the result of our projects must be published in open access immediately. And this applies also to the data sharing. So we encourage or even we oblige our beneficiaries to have a data management plan and to put all the research data that underlie the publications into repositories that are following the FAIR principle, meaning that the data are findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable by anybody else. So just to give you a glimpse on what are the figures in Horizon Europe so far. We have for the moment more than or close to 9,000 signed grants already, and we are still not yet in the middle of the program. And we have, of these 95 billion, we have already spent 23.7 billion on grants. So these are grants that are signed and the projects are running. And within these grants, we have close to 55,000 participations. So each participation in a consortium counts as one. The number of single unique participants in these 55,000 participations is close to 18,000. And out of these 18,000, we have 10,000 SME participations. You can look very much deeper into the statistics if this interests you. What I show on this screen here is just a teaser. We have a so-called Horizon dashboard where you can dig and drill deep into our data sets and look into any aspect that interests you. So just maybe to highlight one aspect on that slide here, if we look, for instance, into the funding to which types of organizations it goes. You see it in the rightmost part of the screen, types of organizations. We can roughly say that 1/3 of the funding goes to private bodies, meaning companies. 1/3 goes to research organizations and another third to the higher or secondary education establishments, meaning universities. And then, of course, there are a few others. So again, if you are interested, the link to the Horizon dashboard is down there at the bottom of the screen, and you can explore it yourself. So maybe a few more details before we go into the questions and answers. I started talking about the excellent science pillar, the pillar number 1. Here again, we have the European Research Council dealing with frontier research, curiosity-driven research, no predefined subject lines. You can apply with any project that is of your interest and your speciality. 60 billion for this European Research Council. We have the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Fellowship actions with 6.6 billion, and we have the activities on the research infrastructures, where in the first instance we fund transnational access. That means there is an important research infrastructure in one country that provides access to researchers from other countries to do their experiments in that infrastructure. Okay, I will not go further into the European Research Council so that we have more time for discussion. I show here again the clusters under Pillar 2. So going through them very quickly, starting with health. Second one, culture, creativity, and inclusive societies. Third one, civil security for society. Fourth one, the digital industry and space. Then we have climate, energy and mobility, and last but not least, food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture and environment. And as I already mentioned before, this is the biggest individual chunk of the program with more than 50 billion assigned to it. So I skipped this one because we mentioned it already. And then again, Pillar 3, European Innovation Council, European Innovation Ecosystems, and the EIT. Coming to the widening, here we have actions that are called teaming, twinning, ERA chairs. We have a support for the so-called national contact points. These are the networks in the member states helping applicants and participants to find their way through. We have other excellence in initiatives and also a possibility for entities from widening countries to join already selected actions. That is the so-called hop-on facility that we are using. For this, we have close to 3 billion, and there is the European Research Area part on the right-hand side, which deals with the reforming and enhancing the EU research and innovation system. Finally, the part on nuclear research and training. The main objective here is research and training activities to reduce the risks of nuclear safety and security and the development of safe nuclear technologies and optimal radiation protection. The budget for this is close to 2 billion euros. Now I want to talk a bit about the mechanics, how these activities that I presented are actually put into motion. And here the notion of work programs is very important. So for each of the areas that I presented, we elaborate together with the member states plans in order to define which calls for proposals with which budget and with which subject areas and which conditions are published in the coming year or in the coming 2 years. So some parts of the program have annual work programs, some parts have biannual work programs. And these work programs are the main documents containing anything that a potential applicant has to know in order to prepare a proposal. So, and these work programs are structured, of course, along the structure of the program. So there is the so-called main work program, which covers the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions and the research infrastructures. It covers all clusters, the thematic areas in Pillar 2. It covers the European innovation ecosystems in Pillar 3 and the widening part. This is a work program that combines all these activities. And within this work program, there are 13 parts. I will not go into the details. They cover, of course, each of the clusters and each of these other activities. So if you, for instance, go to the Funding and Tenders portal and select Horizon Europe and go to the reference documents parts, you will find all these work programs, all these 13 parts for the past years, but also for the current years and the years to come when they are available. And then we have, apart from this so-called main work program, separate work programs that cover, one covers the European Research Council, another one covers the Joint Research Center, and the third one covers the European Innovation Council. Also these, of course, you find in the reference documents on the Funding and Tenders portal. Horizon Europe is about research and innovation, but it is not just curiosity driven. It is also supposed to provide impact. And what kind of impact is expected is formulated in the program in so-called key impact pathways. And we have defined, or the legislator even has defined, 9 main impact pathways in 3 blocks. So of course we expect from the research and innovation funding scientific impact, meaning that new knowledge is created, that the human capital in research and innovation is strengthened, and that also the diffusion of knowledge and open science is supported and fostered. Apart from the pure scientific impact, we expect, of course, also societal impact, meaning that at least the part of the program that are focused on certain areas, that these address the general EU policy priorities and the global challenges through research and innovation, of course, that we deliver impact and benefits via the missions, and that we also support the uptake of research innovation in society. And last but not least, economic impact is also an important aspect. So by investing in research and innovation, we expect that there is innovation-based growth generated, which finally leads to more and better jobs, and to leveraging more investments in research and innovation, in particular by industry. And with this, I finish my short introduction, and we have quite a number of minutes for questions and answers. So please, if you have not done yet so, go to Slido Horizon 1, you see it here on the screen, and ask your questions. Or if you see that there is a question already there that interests you, upvote that question, and we will then go through the questions in the order of number of likes. So I start maybe with the very first question I see here. How do calls, proposals of a certain cluster within Pillar 2 relate to mission opportunities? So I should maybe start by saying there are separate calls for the missions. So there are separate chapters in the work programs with calls that are dedicated to the missions. And of course, the projects that are funded there are directly contributing to the missions. But this is not all, because as the person who asked it might imply, there might be other projects in other areas that directly or indirectly also participate to a certain mission. And for this one, we have a possibility to monitor all the projects. There might even be projects under the bottom-up parts of the program that, in the sense of serendipity, will finally contribute to missions. And this monitoring system helps us to identify such projects that at the first instance are not fully dedicated to a mission. And then we will establish the respective links and will make sure that the results of these other projects come into the big portfolio of a mission. Second question, are there programs for individual researchers or a team of a professor and PhD students for research at their own institution without a consortium? Yes, there are. And here I should refer in the first instance to the Pillar 1. And there we have the European Research Council, which explicitly funds individual researchers. So everything in the European Research Council is structured around the so-called principal investigator, and then there is no need for forming a consortium. One single principal investigator, together with his or her host institution, can apply for such a grant. And again, this is bottom-up, so there are no predefined subject area. Any area of science can be funded there. And then the second possibility, again under Pillar 1, is the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Fellowship Actions. There is a big part dedicated to the so-called individual fellowships, where indeed one researcher can apply to go to an institution in another country and have a fellowship there for a few years. These are the main possibilities for individual researchers or single beneficiary actions. There is the other possibility in the Pillar 3, so on the other side of the spectrum, in the accelerator. But this is not addressed to PhD students or professors or research institutions or universities. These are the actions addressed to companies and in particular SMEs. But here again, a single SME can participate without a consortium. Okay, next question. If I run an organization headquartered in Britain, but I am an EU national, can I apply? Is Britain a third country and now back in horizon after recent deal? I would suggest that we postpone the reply to this question, because we have a separate agenda item where we give an update on the association of the United Kingdom to Horizon Europe. So there is latest news that will be, I hope, good news for you. But we will come to this in a dedicated agenda point. Next question. How much funding is allocated per year? Is it proportionally each year? It's not exactly proportional because in the first year it is a bit under proportional, and then in a certain sense it is backloaded. I cannot give you the exact figures here, but they are available. And if you are interested in the funding for the next coming years, where we have the work programs already defined, you can look into these work programs and you will see the concrete budget distribution. Next question. Are the open calls and tenders genuinely competitive, or are there some areas where the need has been identified via a pre-call discussion with some corporate? So the general principle is complete openness. Everybody can participate. I should maybe mention what I already mentioned in my presentation. We have the so-called partnerships. And within these partnerships, the partners come together and discuss together the areas that should be funded. But of course, they do not discuss who is allowed to participate. So once these areas are defined, again, the calls that are issued by these partnerships within the subject area of the partnership are completely open. So everybody can participate also in the calls issued by the partnerships. So there is no discussion on this pre-distribution of money or whatever you might have in mind between predefined beneficiaries. That does not exist. Next question, where do joint actions fit within the Horizon program? I'm afraid I don't understand the question. Next one, can a company submit a proposal on its own, or is there a need for partnership? I covered it already to a big part. So there are parts of the program where you can have mono beneficiary grants. And if you speak about companies, I think I should refer you in the first instance to Pillar 3 and the accelerator funding, where we fund individual SMEs or sometimes also mid-caps. Next question, is the relevant impact pathway specified in each of the calls? It's not exactly the relevant impact pathway, but indeed in the calls, the expected impact is defined, in particular in the clusters, in the thematic areas, in quite some detail. And you will hear more about it in one of the next presentations on how to prepare and submit a proposal. Okay, yes, we still have a few minutes. Will you foresee instruments like framework partnership agreements to better strategize, implement programs with partner organizations? So there is indeed an instrument in the EU financial regulation called Framework Partnership Agreement. Some exceptional projects are established in that way, where first such a partnership agreement is signed with a group of beneficiaries, and then within this rather long-term partnership agreement, there can be individual grant agreements, specific grant agreements with budget assigned to it. But this is the exception. So the normal and the way by which most of the budget is spent is by way of open calls with grants for a predefined period of time with a predefined maximum EU contribution. Next question, until which technology readiness level is Pillar 1 considered? From that level onwards, the application is considered for Pillar 2. There is, in the Pillar 1, there is no such definition. So there is no cut saying if you come apart from above, let's say, TRL 5, it's no longer possible to fund something under the Research Council. That doesn't exist. What exists is that in the Pillar 2, in the thematic areas, the calls can specify the expected TRL level at the start of the project and which TRL level is to be reached by the end of the project. So that exists in Pillar 2. Again, in Pillar 1, no such restriction applies. Next one, are there funds for master thesis? No, this is not an Erasmus program where we fund students. This is another EU program. Having said this, of course, if a master student participates in one of our projects under Horizon Europe and is paid for this according to the normal rules and practices of a university, then the costs, the personnel costs for this can be charged to the Horizon Europe grant if all the other eligibility conditions for the costs are fulfilled. Next one, how is an international patient organization highlighted as a potential consortium partner for researchers and grant seekers? So there is no restriction. If this international patient organization is a legal entity, so this is one of the main conditions for participation, only legal entities can participate, but I would assume that such an organization is a legal entity, then they can, of course, become partners in a consortium if the project and the subject area and the expected impact require the participation of such an organization. Next one, a lot of companies propose expensive services to help writing Horizon proposals. Do your stats confirm their added value? We cannot have detailed stats on this because we do not know ourselves which of the applicants make use of such consultancy services. What we can say is that we have, together with the member states, the system of national contact points that is for us the main vehicle of giving help and support in preparing proposals. And of course, we are trying to simplify our program and the participation in a way that you do not need so much intensive and expensive consultancy. But of course, we are aware that this practice exists. Okay, now last question. Is there a possibility for new calls for regional innovation valleys? I'm afraid I cannot reply to this one. We might come back to it later. And then I think we are at the end of this part, and we come to our next presentation, which follows directly what I said. So there is news on the association of the United Kingdom to Horizon Europe. And we are glad to have our colleague Maud Fichet with us. Maud is working in the unit in the RTD Director General dealing with the associations. And she will now tell us everything about the association of the United Kingdom. And I have to say I will have to leave this session now for other obligations, and the further chairing of the rest of the session will be done by my dear colleague Manuel Romariz. So Maud, over to you.
Dear Peter, thank you very much for giving me the floor. Hello, everyone. Indeed, I would like to take you a bit around the association policy of Horizon Europe. And if you give me a second, I would like to share some slides which are currently being updated, and I think you should be able to see them now. My slides. So indeed, I would like to take you to the association policy of Horizon Europe. As Peter mentioned, Horizon Europe is a program that is open to the world, and which means that entities from Europe and of course beyond can participate. Now, among these third countries, so not EU member states, but third countries, we have let's say, a club that we call associated countries. These countries, as you will see on the slide, yes, are not EU member states, but they are third countries with which we have the EU, we have a special relationship. They are countries that for most part are, as you can see from the map, located close to the EU. They are either countries part of the European Economic Area. There are countries either part of our enlargement policy and countries part of our European neighborhood policy, as well as other third countries such as the Faroe Islands. To date, we have 17 of countries that are associated. And I will come to that specifically in a minute. Just to remind you that maybe some of you do not know, but the benefit of being associated, which means that entities from associated countries can become beneficiaries and receive funding from our program and count towards the minimum eligibility requirement. This means that if you're a coordinator, if you're trying to build a consortia, you can actually have entities from, let's say, I'm looking at the map, from Tunisia, Turkey, Ukraine, Norway, etc., being part of your consortia as beneficiaries. Now, for those of you who have sharp eyes and are looking at the map right now, you will see that there are, let's say, two novelties on the association policy compared to the association we had under H2020, our previous framework program. The first of that, as you will see, is that we have New Zealand now associated. It looks a bit in the bottom corner of the map because that's the shot I have. And we have an asterisk, which is close to the United Kingdom. So let me take you now to the latest news on the association policy. New Zealand has been associated since the 9th of July 2023. And we are very excited to have New Zealand associated, since it is the first time that a highly industrialized country located beyond the EU's close neighborhood is associated to a union program. And in this case, it is Horizon Europe. From a research point of view, we see absolutely great benefits in this association because it gives European entities, so European coordinators, access to another region of the world, another hemisphere, and a whole new type of networks for research. As you can see, importantly, New Zealand is associated to the second pillar of Horizon. As you know, Horizon is divided in 3 pillars, and some of you actually mentioned that in the first presentation, which means that New Zealand entities can be beneficiaries for all the calls that are funded from the second pillar. But of course, New Zealand is able to participate and continue to participate as a third country in pillars 1 and 3. So it means that New Zealand entities can participate in calls from the first and the third pillar, but simply will not receive funding and will not count towards the minimum eligibility requirements. How can you find and where can you find and can you be in contact with New Zealand entities? The national contact points that Peter mentioned are probably your best first entry point. There is a link on this presentation that you will have access to. As you may know that on our funding and tenders portal that you will be presented later, we have a specific place where you look for national contact points. And New Zealand has been setting up its contact points and is with these people will be more than happy to be in touch with you to help you find the right partner in New Zealand for your project. The second piece of news we have, and this relates to some of the questions we've heard already, is that the Union and the United Kingdom's government announced on the 7th of September by a joint statement that we had found an agreement to finalize the association of the United Kingdom to Horizon Europe and Copernicus. Copernicus being the EU's world-leading program on Earth observation. A technical bit is that this agreement is not yet, let's say, finalized. It needs now to be on the EU side. It needs to be approved by our council, so our member states, and then it needs to be formally adopted by a specialized committee on participation in union programs. This is a specialized committee which is co-chaired between the EU and the UK. What's important, I think, for you for everyone to understand is that we have this as agreement, but the association does not start today, okay? It will be effective from the 1st of January 2024. This means the association is effective for the calls funded from the 2024 work programs onwards. One as well important piece of information is that the UK is associated to the entire of Horizon Europe, so Pillar 1, 2, and 3, with the one exception of the EIC fund under the EIC accelerator. This is the equity part of the accelerator. Of course, we are very, very happy to be able to welcome our UK and British researchers and innovators into the program as associated countries, because as we know, we will see huge benefits in being able to continue the cooperation with them. So, of course, we encourage you to reach out to your partners in the United Kingdom to look out for the future opportunities in the 2024 work program, so that you can already start thinking about your collaborations. My presentation actually ends here, but I wanted to maybe start kicking off some of the questions. And one of the first question I think that you may have is, what happens to the UK entities in my consortia? Now, let's, as most of you know, until now, so for the calls that were funded from the work program 21, 22, and 23, the scientists, researchers, or entities that were affiliated to a UK institution benefited from what we call transitional arrangements. This means they applied as beneficiaries. They were evaluated as other beneficiaries under Horizon calls. However, we could not sign a grant agreement with them since, of course, we needed an association agreement to be in place. So as I think some of you may have experienced this, what happened is that the coordinator, close to the timing of the signature of the grant agreement, received a letter from the funding authority indicating that indeed the UK entity would not be able to receive funding from Horizon Europe, and that the consortia had to find a solution. This has been the case for the calls ever since 2021, so ever since the program started. And as we have seen, in the vast majority of cases, the coordinators and the UK entities decided to stay in the consortia as associated partner. As you know, associated partner means that the entity participates in the task and the action, but receives funding from other sources. So not from Horizon Europe, but other sources. And in the case of UK entities, usually this was through the guarantee fund that the UK government has put in place to help its entities participate in Horizon calls. So just to be clear, with this agreement, and since, as I said, the association is effective from the 1st of January 2024, it means that if you have received a grant from 2021, 2022, or 2023 work programs, this transitional agreement remains the same, meaning that your UK entity can apply as a beneficiary, it can be evaluated as a beneficiary, but it will not be able to receive funding from the program. The exceptions that apply to this description I've just made is simply if the call description, so the description that is of your call, actually says that third countries can be funded, and if exceptional funding has been provided at evaluation level. But in the vast majority of cases, UK entities would not be able to receive funding from 21, 22, 23 work programs. This is also true, and especially for the 2023 calls that are opening now, will be closed in, let's say, 2023, but will be signed in 2024. So what is important to realize is to understand from what budget year your call or the call you're interested in is being funded. As you know, every Horizon call has an identification number, which sets out the program year this call belongs to. If the call ID includes 2023, then it means that the call is part of the 2023 work program. If the call ID includes 2024, it means that the call will be part of the 2024 work program. So this is true. If a project has 2023 in its ID and is signed in 2024, the UK beneficiary will not receive direct funding from Horizon Europe. If we're talking about a call from 2024 work program, but that is already open in 2023 and even will sometimes close in 2023, the UK entity will be able to become beneficiary. I hope this is slightly clear, and I would simply encourage everyone to go and look at the call ID of the calls you are interested in to really figure out if you're speaking about a 2023 call or a 2024 call, which will make the difference in terms of funding for your UK partners. I will stop here, but I'm very, very happy to take questions. And I've already noted one that I can take as a kickoff, if you want. I'm just going to try to look at the questions. So let me take them one by one.
Thank you very much, Maud. Actually, I'm Manuel Romaris. I'm training coordinator for Horizon 2020. I will replace now Peter. And if you want, I can read you the questions. That's up to you,
Yes,
Maud.
please. Yes,
Okay,
please. That would
perfect.
be great.
Thank you so much. So, and thank you for the presentation, of course. What is the case of Switzerland now? Can they participate? How do they receive funding?
So thanks a lot for the question. So Switzerland is not an associated country as of now, which means that they are absolutely welcome to participate in the program, but they participate as a third country, third high-income country, meaning they will not receive funding from the program. But of course, so it means that they will become associated partners in your consortia, and they will have to find funding from other sources, either self-funded or any other source.
Thank you. Second question is, can the USA participate in Cluster 1 calls? Does it not count an associated partner?
So the United States is a third country, a high-income third country. So they would not be able to receive direct funding from the program. Some of the calls in Pillar 1 are open to collaborative funding, which would permit the participation of US entities. You should know as well that sometimes the United States has actually a specific fund that funds some of their entities that participate in Horizon Europe. And the best place to find out more would be on the European Commission's website on the United States, where there is such an explanation, and of course being in touch with the national contact points of the United States. And the information is also found on the funding and tender portal.
Thank you. The next question I think you have already answered, but just to clarify, the entry into force of the GA in January 2024 means that by submitting a project from January onwards, the UK entities will be eligible as beneficiaries?
Yes, just to clarify. So what is important is actually, as I said, the year from which the call is funded. So the association is effective as of January 2024 because this, as you know, the UK, by being associated, for example, has access to several governance structures from Horizon Europe. So this is what is important when we talk about the 1st of January 2024. Concerning applicants, what is important for you is not so much the 1st of January 2024, but when so which budget year the call you're interested in is funded from. Again, as I said, there are some 2024 calls, so calls funded from the 2024 work program, which are actually already open or will open soon in 2023. The UK entities have access to these calls as beneficiaries. Now, again, let me underline that UK entities also have access to 2023 calls. Again, they can be evaluated as beneficiaries, but they will not receive funding from Horizon Europe, and they will receive funding from other sources.
Thank you. Are there other countries eligible for funding? Other third countries? Where can we see this in the topic call?
Yes, so we have several, let's say, categories of countries that are eligible for funding. First, we have the low to middle income countries that are automatically eligible for funding. And we have, of course, their associated countries. So the 17 countries I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation. You have this information in the call description. And I think my colleague Isabel will provide more information on this when she will present it, but you do have a list and you will have access to the list. I will leave Isabel to demonstrate to you exactly where this is located.
Thank you. Isabel will be the last presentation today. Next question, what about EU for Health calls? UK can be funded there?
EU for Health?
Yes.
Did I understand that correctly?
Yes.
So the same logic applies. It would be depending on what budget year. So if these are calls that are funded from 2023 or 2022, 2021 calls, the UK entities again can participate. I would like to insist on that. They can participate, but they will not receive direct funding from the program. If these are calls that will be funded from 2024 onwards, and then the UK entities will be able to be the beneficiaries and receive funding from the program.
Thank you. Next question. The UK can participate in Pillar 1 as well, sorry, of course, from 2024?
Yes, absolutely. The United Kingdom is associating to the entire program, which means Pillar 1, Pillar 2, and Pillar 3.
Next question. It was implied by EU executive agencies that for projects funded in 2023, signed in 2024, UK entities may re-enter consortia as BENs, B-E-N. Is this likely to happen?
Sorry, can you show me that question again? I didn't hear it.
It's on the screen. Can you see it? I can read it again.
Yes, please.
It was implied by EU executive agencies that for projects funded in 2023, signed in 2024, UK entities may re-enter consortia as BENs. Is it likely to happen?
Well, this is linked to what I was saying. So from a very legal point of view, the United Kingdom will be contributing to the budget of Horizon Europe as of 2024. So for the 2024 calls, the United Kingdom will not be participating to the program and the budget of Horizon Europe for 21, 22, and 23. So therefore, no, it will be difficult to fund UK entities from 2023 programs and budgets.
Thank you. The next question is a more political question. Thinking ahead towards FP10, how much renegotiation will be required for current Horizon Europe associated countries, including the UK?
This is a very good question, and indeed referring to the future. The honest answer is that we don't know. And the reason we don't know is that, as you know, conditions for association are enshrined in what we call today the Horizon Europe regulation. And this is the fruit of deliberations between our co-legislators, the Council and the Parliament. Now, there will be a new regulation for FP10, and our co-legislators will be deciding what are the conditions and the new conditions for association policy. So first, we need to look at the coming regulation, the new regulation, which does not exist yet, and then we will see the association, what will be the key to the association policy. In any case, just to clarify that the current association agreements only apply to Horizon Europe. So even if we, let's say, copy-paste the conditions of association into the new framework program, we will need to reassociate them.
Thank you very much. And the last question is, can UK-based NGOs lead on Horizon Europe calls?
UK, yeah? Yeah.
Yes.
So absolutely, yeah. Once the United Kingdom is associated, and so the beneficiaries can be associated, can be beneficiaries, they can definitely be coordinators. This is one of the benefits of being a beneficiary, is that indeed you can coordinate a call.
Thank you very much. I think that was all for the questions part. And we are going now to the next topic, is searching for calls and partners in the funding and tenders portal. Here we have our colleague, Olivier MARGANNE, who will introduce us this part. Olivier is the responsible for the funding and tenders portal. And in addition, he's one of the people running the studio here in DGRTD. So since we are running ahead of time, we are planning to finalize at 11 and reinitiate again at 11:15. Olivier is coming from the fish pool there in the technical room. He's in the technical room. He's preparing himself to come here to the studio. So he's still there, dealing with the micro, I think. And here he comes.
Yes, I hope everyone can hear me. I'm just looking at my colleagues who can confirm whether everything is working. Okay. I still need to see my presentation on the screen, but while the presentation is being changed on the computer, that one on the right, sorry, it's a bit of a rush. So I can already introduce myself. So indeed, my name is Olivier MARGANNE. I'm part of DGRTD. I'm working in the Common Implementation Center, and I am an IT service officer, which means that my presentation is more based, it's more hands-on, actually. So to show you exactly how the tools are working. This is a general presentation, which usually is, yeah, sorry, I'm making moves to my colleagues at the same time, because I need my presentation on the screen. It's on the PC there on the right. Yes, so my presentation will be a bit longer because it will cover several topics, and hopefully newcomers and more experienced users alike will be able to find something useful for them in this presentation. So I'm just looking at my colleague Manuel, if he can just display the presentation. Yeah. Sorry, it's the third one.
The third one.
The next one. It's the third one. Sorry for this. I mean, that's the perks of being live, obviously. So yes, perfect. So now you should be able to see my presentation, and I will start immediately so that we can continue if this is working actually. I seem to have an issue with the point. No, this is good. Okay. So sorry about this. We can now start for real. And my presentation will cover different levels. So I will start to give you some general information about how the Funding and Tenders portal is organized. So there are three main layers for the Funding and Tenders portal. So there are three main elements. The first one is the EU login account. So this should really be your identifier as a person. This identifies you as a single user. And your EU login account may be linked to one or several PIC numbers. So PIC is a participant identification code. This is the code that we use to identify the organizations in the Funding and Tenders portal. And on top of that, you have all those little characters that you see at the bottom of the screen. Those are the roles that you can have. This is already happening at a later level, so it will be more when you can actually start preparing your grant. But I will also mention it during my presentation because this is quite an important part. Let's start from the beginning. So you reach the Funding and Tenders portal. If you want to apply to a proposal, the very first thing to do is to actually create your personal account, your EU login account. So the main principle about the EU login account is that it should be linked to your professional email address. It works following the single sign-on principle. The single sign-on means that we recommend you not to use functional mailboxes or to use email addresses which are shared between different persons. And there's one very simple reason behind this, is that later on when you get a role to act in a project, anyone having access to that email address can actually act on your behalf on the funding, in the Funding and Tenders portal. So it means that we cannot determine if there's any legal issue at some point. We cannot determine who clicked on the button. So it's very important that your EU login account remains in your hands and that you do not share your EU login credentials. So basically, if you need to manage your EU login account, you go on the upper right side of the screen. So those are brand new screenshots because you might have seen, if you are used to using the Funding and Tenders portal, that it has been slightly revamped over the past week. So this is what it looks like. If you need to access any of the IT tools, you have what is called My Area on the left-hand side once you have logged in. And this is the place where you can actually reach the IT tools. Now, focusing on the EU login account, you go on the top right-hand side, and once you are logged in, you can click on My Account. And this is the place where you will actually be able to manage your EU login account. So if you want to change the password, it's hidden behind a little gear icon. But what is also important here is to see that you have several options, like, for example, adding mobile devices. Adding mobile devices is actually the way that you can enable two-factor authentication. So two-factor authentication is something which is not specific to the Funding and Tenders portal. You may see that this is also happening for most email services. For, many big websites are using two-step authentication. What is the principle behind it? The thing is that the e-login account, which is based on just the ID and the password, is not secure enough. Because if there's any data leak at some point, anyone having your ID and password can actually go in the portal and impersonate you. And there's no way for us to say whether it was actually you or someone else. The second factor authentication, the principle is that you confirm your identity with a physical device. So it can be your mobile phone, it can be your PC, but just a physical piece of equipment which you have with you and which actually enables us to actually make sure that you are the one trying to log in. There are several ways to do this. You can use the eLogin mobile app, which is available in the App Store or on Google Play. This will allow you to log in using either a QR code or a PIN code. In case you don't own a smartphone or you don't want to use a smartphone, you can also identify using an SMS confirmation. And something which is also not very well known is that you can actually use also the trusted platform. So actually, Windows Hello, when you are using Windows from version 10 onwards, you can log in using the facial recognition, the fingerprints, or the PIN code, and you can also use that one as the second factor authentication, so that you don't need to actually have a mobile phone or a smartphone, but you can use your own computer. Just be careful that you will need to repeat the operation on all the different computers that you are using to access EU login. So I have included a link at the bottom of this slide to have more information about the two-step authentication. As my colleagues have already said, all the presentations are already available on the event page anyway. So if you want to enable two-factor authentication, that's the place. You log in using your e-login account first. You click on the little character icon on the top right, and then security settings. And the basic principle is that you first need to register the mobile device and then enable the two-step authentication. I won't go through the different steps. You can find information in the presentation itself or in the link more about two-step verification. Once the two-factor authentication is activated, actually you will receive such a confirmation so that you know that two-step verification is enabled. And then all the subsequent times that you will try to log into the portal, you will have such a pop-up. So you have this little menu, and you can define the way that you prefer in order to log in to the Funding and Tenders portal. So this is for the EU login account, so your identifier as a person. Now we go to the next step. It's the participant register, the participant identification code, how to get a PIC number so that you can actually submit a proposal. So registering the organization is easy. You have the menu how to participate, participant register, and there we ask you first to make sure that your organization does not have a PIC number already, because if it's the case, you don't need to repeat the registration. It's a waste of time both for you and for the Commission services, because I mean, there's a validation which is involved. I will talk about this in a few minutes, but it's better not to repeat it if you already have a PIC number. So you can do a very simple search. And in case you don't find your organization, then you can actually go and start registering. So if you click on register your organization, you will reach such a screen. So you'll need to log in using the EU login account. And basically you see on the background that it's a metro line. So just to show you a little bit better, we ask you to input some information one screen after the other. So the identification of your organization, some additional data, legal information, who are the authorized users, and all this kind of information. And once you have succeeded succeeded in all those steps, you actually get a PIC number which can be used to submit a proposal. So the PIC number is provisional, so it means that you will have the organization status declared. It means that you can start using this PIC number to submit a proposal. It will need to be validated at a later step. The validation services will actually make sure that your organization is validated so that you can go to the next step. What is important is that the person who actually registers the organization in the Funding and Tenders portal receive a role which is called a self-registrant role. So self-registrant is really the person who is responsible of the data of your organization in the portal until a LEAR is appointed. If you have never heard about the LEAR, you will hear about it a lot. This is basically the legal entity appointed representative. So this is the person which is actually verified by the validation services and which is the start of what we call the chain of trust. So at a later stage, you will be able to actually manage your consortium the way you want. And this is all because we have validated this LEAR role. I will also talk about this more in detail a bit later on. What is very important is that when it concerns the registration or the validation of your organization, if you need to contact the validation services, please do this in the participant register directly. So you just log into the system, to the portal, and in My Organization you can access the participant register. So I mentioned already the legal validation. So this will not happen until your proposal is actually successfully evaluated. So if you submit a proposal and then you are invited to reach the grant preparation phase, then this is the moment where the legal validation will need to be done. If your organization has already been validated, then it's good news because you don't need to go through this phase again. It's done once, and then it's valid for all programs across the funding and tenders portal. But the validation is mandatory if it has not been done. It's mandatory for all the beneficiaries and all the affiliated entities. So the affiliated entities used to be called linked third parties in Horizon 2020. If you already participated, you know what it corresponds to. So this is just a basic overview of the validation process. You register the organization, your organization is validated. In parallel, the validation services are gathering all the info to nominate the leader, and there's a financial capacity assessment. If needed, you will see depending on the calls that you apply to. So if you have done this, then you can actually go and start searching for funding and tenders, so searching for funding opportunities. Just a word about the very basic structure, how the programs are organized on the Funding and Tenders portal. So the Funding and Tenders portal contains different programs. Of course, there's Horizon Europe, but there's not only Horizon Europe, there are also other programs. And for those programs, you have calls for proposals. And within those calls, there can be one or several topics. And the reason why I mention this is because when you try to apply, you are actually applying to a topic. So when you search a funding opportunity, you will search for topics. So from a technical point of view, this is important. So if you go on the search funding and tenders page, you see that this the page that you have right now. So again, a screenshot from yesterday. You see that it's quite complete. So we advise you to use the filters on the left-hand side to narrow down your research. So you can use some keywords first and foremost. But there's also the fact that, for example, you can pick between the grants and the tenders. So the grants are the non-profit opportunities that have activities funded by the EU, while the tenders are calls from the Commission to buy goods or services at a fixed price. So this is the basic difference between the grants and the tenders. They are not managed exactly the same in the portal. For this presentation, I will not talk about the tenders at all because Horizon Europe has only grants for the time being. But you will see that if you pick some options on the menu on the left-hand side, you might have some more possibilities to actually fine-tune your search. So for example, if you are looking for Horizon Europe, you can have some additional filters for some pillars, for example. So yesterday, I did this search about the keyword energy in Horizon Europe. I have 100 possibilities here. I just picked one of them. And this is what you will have on the topic page. This is organized the same way for all the different programs. What is important is that the first part of the page is more descriptive, so it's complete information about what the topic is about, what are the specific eligibility conditions to apply to this topic, all the documents which can be useful in order to apply. So this is all the first 4 tabs, so general information, topic description, destination, conditions, and documents. So please read this information very carefully because the most basic details about the specific topic is indicated there. Then there will be 2 parts which are more, I would say, interactive. So you have the partner search announcements, so the people who are either looking for expertise or if you want to say that you are available to participate in this specific topic. The start submission part, which is the place where you can actually start submitting your proposal, as the name implies. And then the last section is more related to the specific help that you can get for this specific topic. So if you scroll down in this page, you will reach the partner search announcements. This can be very useful, as I said, if you want to actually join an existing consortium, or if you are an existing consortium missing one partner, so you can post a partner search request. This is written in small prints, I will mention it again, but the only people who can actually post those partner search announcements are the LEAR, the account administrators, or the self-registrants if your organization is not validated yet. This is quite important. Again, more information about those roles a bit later. So again, real screen from the portal. I just took one by chance, so there's no, I'm not trying to advertise anything, or just to give you a very concrete example that you can do yourself by going to the portal already now. So here you can see the partner search announcement, which have been posted. And if you click, for example, on the first one, the first organization that I found, you reach what is called the organization profile. So this is a page for which you don't need to do anything. It gathers all the information which is available on the Funding and Tenders portal regarding this specific organization. So you can know where the organization is based, what type of organization it is, and what are they specialized in. For example, here we can see decarbonization. And then you have some information about past projects. If they have participated in past EU projects, you can see that here we have one project in Horizon 2020 and 2 projects in Horizon Europe, and all the time as beneficiaries and not as coordinators. Let's go low on the page, and you can have information about the partners for those projects. So which organizations were they in contact with for those specific projects. And again, lower on the page, you have the list of projects that the organization has been involved in and the list of partner search announcements. We can see that the partner search announcement, there's only one, and this is the one that I clicked on to reach this page. There's also a little button which is Contact Project. I will talk about it in a minute as well. Just to mention that there's another way to actually look for partners. Yeah, I will not mention this now. So another way to search for partners is to go on the How to Participate menu and the partner search. Here it's not the correct option which is shown, it's partner search. What is the difference? When you go via the Search, Funding and Tenders page, you are consulting the partner search announcements which are specific to the topic that you are watching. And if you go through the partner search, it's more general. So you are more looking for a specific field of expertise and not necessarily a given funding opportunity. So if you look under partner search, you can either look for organizations or for persons, so for individual users. So it's important because you can find both. We have already covered the organizations. But for example, here I used a very Belgian name. I'm Belgian myself, so I looked for Van Damme, for example. And if you look here, I have some results for persons or for organizations. We have seen what the organization profiles look like. Now let's click on a person profile. And this is information which is visible about a specific user. I will not go into detail, but what is important is that this information is not visible by default. It's not because you create an EU login account that everyone will be able to see this kind of information. What is important, and here I will give you a glimpse at my own person profile actually. So I went into the portal, logged in myself, and here you can see that the first option on the left is my person profile. And this is the information from my own Commission account. You can see that there are some keywords which have been entered. There's my professional email address. But on the right-hand side, you can decide what you want to show. So the first thing is that you need to actually publish your profile. So you need to actively publish it, because otherwise it won't be findable. And once you have published it, you can go and click on those little eye icons on the right-hand side in order to decide to really fine-tune to the tiniest element what will be visible and what will be hidden. So this is what you see in the background, but if you actually go on the portal and look for my person profile, this is what you will see. I decided to show only my gender and my nationality, so this is what you will get if you decide to publish your person profile and depending on the information that you want to show. Now, something which I wanted to mention as well is the contact person button that exists on the person profile or the contact project if you are looking at organizations. There are a few elements which are important to know. So here again, I was using my own account and I clicked on contact this person, for example. So what is important is that I don't see any personal information through this form. I see the name of the person at the beginning of the form, but it's because that name is available publicly already. Otherwise, I would not see anything. And then the name and the email that you see are my name and email addresses. So it's because I clicked on the contact form. Now we have put a CAPTCHA in place in order to minimize the risk of being contacted by robots. And if you are using this form, you also need to agree to the terms and conditions of the portal, which means that if you are using this form for commercial purposes, for example, or for uses which are not covered by the terms and conditions of the funding and tenders portal, you may be sanctioned. So just know that if you are planning to use it, if it's a normal communication, you have nothing to fear. But if it's to sell some products, or if you are spamming half of the beneficiaries of the portal, and good luck because there are many, then you may be punished. And this leads me to the spamming and the phishing. So this is very rare, but what happens if you receive a message and you don't know what to do, actually? You don't know what to do in case you receive this, such a message. The very first thing is that as a user, you have no obligation to reply to a contact attempt. So you can, but as long as you don't do this, the person who contacted you will not know your name or your email address. So that's the very first thing. It's basic, but you need to know it. And also for the rest, we just ask that you use common logic. So just do, if you might have received on your own personal email address some notifications pretending to be from Amazon, from UPS or whatever. I mean, we all receive this kind of spamming and phishing email. And we do not ask any sensitive information via email. Never, ever. So if you need to provide any information, you need to go into the funding and tenders portal and provide this information in the tools themselves, never directly via email. So that's the first thing. If we ask for any information via email, no, don't do this. And in case you doubt that you have received an actual genuine notification from the funding and tenders portal, just know that the email that you receive in your personal mailbox, you should receive a copy of this notification in the funding and tenders portal notifications. So just see what it looks like. If you log in, you have this little bell icon, and this is the place where you can actually go and see the copy of all your notifications. So if you receive an email and you don't see this email into the notifications, then it's likely a fraud. And here is another overview of the notifications that you might receive. Okay, now next step, you are registered as a user via the EU login. You have registered your organization, you have a PIC number, you have found a funding opportunity which suits you, it's start to submit a proposal. I will not cover this in detail because this will be the point of another presentation. Just know that the very basic principle behind it is that if you need to start preparing a proposal, you need to do this on the topic page. And once you have saved or submitted your proposal, they will be available via My Area, My Proposals. So those are two different ways of reaching the proposal. The proposal is composed of two parts. So again, very basically, I will show you in a few screenshots. The topic that I was mentioning earlier before, if I click on Start Submission, I reach this. Again, always the same principle. You have this metro line and you provide information step by step. So the first thing is to tell which organization you are to start creating the proposal. Then you need to inform what are the different participants that will participate in this proposal. And then you will need to actually upload the part A, which is structured information. And for the part B, you will need to download the templates, fill them in, and upload them again in the system. So again, more information by my colleagues later today. This is a bit off topic, but I wanted to mention it either way, because if your proposal is successful, you will need to use the role system. I will not go as much in detail as I usually go, but just know a few tips in advance in case you need to participate. This is the whole identity and access management. So all those characters that you saw at the beginning of my presentation, just know that it's organized between the organization roles, so that's the vertical column, and the project roles. So if you need to keep the organization data up to date, you need an organization role, and if you need to actually manage a project, it's the project roles. And you can see that there are different layers depending whether you are the coordinating organization or whether you are just another beneficiary in the consortium. So very basically, the organization roles will go in my organizations and the project roles will go in my projects. That's a very basic principle. Things which are important and which are not necessarily always very obvious is that the leader, so the top role at the level of the organization, and the primary coordinator contact, which is the top role at the level of the project, are unique. So all the other roles can be distributed to as many people as you want, but there can be only one leader per organization and one primary coordinator contact per project. Otherwise, one person can have all the roles that they want at the same time. So those characters are not individual people. If in case you are participating as a one-person SME in a mono-beneficiary grant, you see the minimum configuration on the screen. One person can have all those roles at the same time. Again, I will not go into details, but just know that the lower you go and the higher powers, let's say, you have in the system. So it can go from read-only access to read and write, or submit actually the forms. When you start submitting the proposal, the person who submits, who creates the proposal, automatically will become primary coordinator contact afterwards. It doesn't mean that this will remain like this until the end of the project, but this is how it starts. And all the people who are informed as being main contacts for all the other beneficiaries will become participant contacts, so the top role at the level of the project for their own organization. Again, I will not go into detail, this is not very important, but if you need to nominate or revoke someone, again, as I mentioned, if you are granting a project role, you go in My Projects, then you can see the list of all the projects that your e-login account is involved in, and you have the Actions button on the side, and if you click on Manage Consortium, this is the place where you can see the different organizations in your consortium and where you can actually grant the roles. You can add or revoke the roles if you have the possibility to do so. Organization roles, My Organizations, you see the list of organizations, Action button, View roles, exactly the same principle. I just want to show you a screen if you need to actually change the layer, because this is a question which is popping up quite often. You need to have access to the data of the organization, so to have this modify organization icon. And there is a tab which is called Authorized Users and Layers, and this is the place where you can actually edit the information about the layer. Also mentioning the fact that if you are appointing legal signatories or financial signatories, this happens in 2 steps, because those are people who will have the legal power to sign legal documents or financial documents on behalf of the organization. So it happens first at the level of the organization, where the leader or the account administrators are giving the right to people to become L signs or F signs. So those people have a role in the system, but they cannot go and sign and submit just yet, because they need to become PL signs or PF signs. So they need to be appointed to the project by the coordinator contacts, primary coordinator contacts, or participant contacts. Again, you don't need this information right now, but this is something which is always very important to know in case you reach the grant preparation. And in case you doubt whether you have the proper role at any point in time, once you log in, you click on the little character on the top right, and then you can see the list of roles which are linked to this EU login account. So for example, for this particular account, there's one organization role, the project roles list, and the proposal roles list, which you can view here. So you are always sure what access you have at which point in time. Just also mentioning the projects and results. So my colleague Peter has already talked a bit about the Horizon dashboard, and this is exactly what I will show you again in a few slides. So this is the place where you can actually discover projects which have already been funded. So you can find some information in case you want to apply, or just if you want to discover what Horizon Europe is funding. So the place to go is projects and results. And here you need to search for a specific program. So here I have already pre-filled the Horizon Europe program. And for example, the dashboard is the place where you can have very detailed information about all the proposals, all the projects, the information per country, For example, I have clicked here on the proposals, and you have all this information which you can then browse, you can export. This is public information, so you can go and really get all the information you want. What I wanted to show as well is that when you reach this kind of screens, you can see that at the top of the screens you have some icons there, and you can use those tabs in order to get some more fine-grained results. For example, here I was looking into the R&I projects, and I wanted to select a specific topic. So I go there, just started typing space, for example, and then when I select space, I have data which is actually filtered to include only the topics about space, and the information is then visible there. So you can then export this information and reuse it any way you want. Also mentioning the Horizon Results platform, because this is the place where the users themselves can actually go and advertise their results. So if you go there, you can publish your results. So again, this is only available for the coordinator contacts or the participant contacts. But if you look at the search engine, view all results. So here, for example, this is an example of project results which have been published by the users themselves. And so it's another way to advertise your work to others, and maybe to get also some information, some useful information in case you want to apply. So I'm reaching the end of my overly long presentation. So again, I know that this is very difficult to absorb in one go. It's a lot of information, but at least you know where to look in case you want some more information, and the support tab of the portal is always very useful in case you want to reach the online manual or the IT how-to. So those are the guide to the business processes or the IT processes with a lot of screenshots and very detailed information about what you need to do at which point in time. There's a big list of FAQs. Don't be overwhelmed by the amount, because we know that there are very many, but if you are using the search engine, you will find the results that you are looking for sure. And then in case you still have some more questions, you can always ask the help desk and the appropriate support services. So thank you for your attention. I think that now we'll start using the Slido questions. So if we can have them on the screen. And maybe my colleague Manuel can also help me actually reach the questions. So I think that this is still the screen from the previous room. So if we can just change the room. Perfect.
So the first one is, when will the two-factor authentication be required?
Okay, so the two-factor for the time being is still strongly advised, but it's not mandatory yet. And the truth is that we don't know when it will become mandatory. So it's still strongly encouraged, because in any case it will make your login account more secure. In case you don't want to use a mobile phone, I have mentioned the fact that you can use your own laptop as the second factor. So it's still very useful. We don't know when it will become mandatory, because this is really dependent at a very higher level when they implement this for the whole Commission. Just already be familiar with it, and yeah, you will see that it will actually help you just to have a more secure login account.
Thank you. Next question. In the roles, what's the difference in terms of access between participant contact and team member?
Yes, so again, when we are talking about the roles, it's already later into the project. Team member has read-only access to the data of the project, but they cannot do anything. The task manager can read and write the information about the project, and the participant contact can read, write, and submit the information to the coordinator when a deadline is reached.
Thank you. There is a suggestion here. A feature to attribute remove roles per batches would be very useful. Is that a possibility?
It's not a possibility for the time being. We need to see what is feasible technically. So, of course, I cannot commit to anything. But yes, I mean, we keep the questions which are asked in any case. So we will just escalate this question and see whether anything is possible. Yeah.
For the EU login, what happens when you have a double affiliation? Should you have two accounts based on your different emails, or one email with two PICs?
As long as we are talking about individual email addresses, I would say that there's no preferred way to work. You can either link everything to one email address. The advantage is that when you will go on the Funding and Tenders portal, you will actually have all the information gathered in one single place, and you will need to switch between the two accounts. But you can also have two different accounts and have the information clearly divided between the two. Technically, both are possible, so it's really how it's organized within your own organization or how you want to work.
A similar question now. I have two EU login accounts, one as researcher, one as a support officer. How can I manage the two-step authentication when I cannot use my mobile for both?
That's a good question, because I'm not entirely sure that you can't use the mobile for both. I would say that in this case, if that's the case, you can still go for different ways of authenticating. For example, going for the SMS for one and for the QR code or the PIN code for the other, or using the trusted platforms or Windows. I'm not entirely sure about this one, but I would just go for different methods of authenticating.
Thank you. How can an organization act as a sub-partner, not subcontractor, in a project via the PIC number of another organization who is the formal partner of the project?
Yeah, so this is more a business question, so I'm not so knowledgeable. The thing is that usually the subcontractors do not need to register in the portal, and they need to report everything to the organization which is subcontracting them, and they manage all the information. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. Yeah.
Thank you. How can we get help on the day of submissions when we have IT issues?
The very first advice that I would give here is not to wait the last day to submit the proposal. So this is a process that takes time. You need to gather quite a lot of information. You can start preparing your proposal as soon as the button becomes available, and you can edit it as many times as you want. You can withdraw it if you see that it's not going anywhere. Please don't wait for the last day, for the last minute. If there's any bug, any issue for whatever reason at the time, at the deadline, and your submission arrives just a few seconds late, it's not eligible. Now, if there's a very generalized IT issue, it has happened in the past, usually the deadline will be extended, or there will be some arrangements which will be made available. But for this, you will get the information on the topic page, and this is a very case-by-case thing. So don't wait for the last day, and in case of IT issues, you can still contact the help desk in any case.
Partner search announcement section topic does not work. This error has been happening since last week. Is it in relation with the new implementation of the website?
I am not aware that there has been any issue, because the screenshots that I have shown in my presentation were literally taken yesterday. Just if you want to post a new announcement, I remind you that this is only the LEAR or the account administrators or the self-registrant who can actually post them or remove them. So if you don't have this role, you will not be able to post them. Now, if there's any other problem, I'm not aware of it, and we will look into this for sure. Yeah.
I have a beneficiary main contact who is a PI. He does not own a cell phone or camera in his computer. Can there be exceptions? Could email confirmation work?
So no exceptions, but if he does not own a cell phone or a camera, then again, we have the option of the trusted platform. So this is really valid for the Windows users. I think the equivalent for Mac is also valid. I'm not very familiar, so I cannot give many more details. But if the SMS or the EU login applications are not the options, then I would strongly advise you to use the trusted platform.
Since we are running a little bit late, we are going to give time to a few more questions, and after we have a small break until 11:30.
Okay.
About the active PIC number related to an SME, is it possible to change such SME status and give the status of international private non-profit organization?
Again, I think that technically this is possible, but this will require, I guess it will require validation by the validation services. In any case, if you need to modify the data of the organization, this is the job of the LEAR and the account administrators. When I'm mentioning the account administrators, those are people who can do exactly the same thing as the LEAR, but the LEAR is the main point of contact with the commission services. So they need to go into the participant register and keep the data up to date there. So I guess that such a change is possible, yes.
Thank you. And the last question, how can I add in my EU login account my organization who has already a PIC number? How can I receive a self-registrant role for my PIC number?
So there's a small confusion here. The self-registrant is the role that you get if you register the organization yourself. So if the organization already exists, there cannot be a second self-registrant. What will happen is that if you want to participate in a project or in a proposal, for example, someone has to give you, using your EU login credentials, so usually the sensitive data here is the email address. So give the email address which is linked to your EU login account to the people who will then grant you access to a project or a proposal.
Thank you very much. I think we should close now for this moment, and we'll have a small break until 11:30, and we start with the, on time actually, with the last speech of today.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
11:30 then. So welcome back. Finally, we are back on track, and we have the last presentation for today. So hopefully we'll finish well before 1. So the presentation is submission and evaluation of proposals, and we have 2 speakers today. One is Isabel Vergara, who is remotely participating because today there is a general strike in Belgium and transportation is a little bit difficult, so she could not come here to the studio. And after Isabel, we'll have a second presenter, that is Izabela PROKOPOWICZ, that she will be here with me, and she is just preparing herself. So Isabel, thank you very much for coming. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Manuel, and good morning to all. Yes, I hope you can see me and hear me well. And yes, this is the last part of this first implementation day, and we will give you more details about how to submit a proposal and what is our evaluation process in Horizon Europe. I hope you can see my slides. Yeah. Yes, I hope you can see it now. Otherwise, tell me if this is not the case. Yeah.
Still not?
It's not the case?
You are not on full screen, apparently.
Okay.
You are not on full screen, they tell me from the studio.
Let me try again. I will stop sharing and try again. What about now?
No. Apparently you are on 2 screens.
Ah, jeez. And now?
They are preparing them here actually, so now it's going perfect.
Okay.
So now it's working.
Now it's working, so I have to put it in a slide. So
no, I see full screen now.
okay.
You can start.
Now it's.
Yes.
I can start. Okay.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. Sorry for the trouble. So good morning again. And yes, in this presentation, Isabella and myself are going to give you more information about first the rules for participation in Horizon Europe. What is the submission process? Although Olivier already introduced this, the submission process and the IT tools that we use. And we will also give you some information about the evaluation process, so the standard evaluation process in Horizon Europe. I will give you the two first parts of this presentation, the rules for participation and the submission process, and Izabela will cover the last one on evaluation. So let's start with the rules for participation. We have already heard many of these rules in Peter's presentation, in most presentations, but I will give you here a more complete overview on how and what these rules are. So when you try to submit a proposal in a topic or a call that you have selected, you need to know that we have admissibility and eligibility conditions. So these are the main two rules for participations that we have. So for admissibility conditions, so we can only accept proposals that have been submitted via our electronic tool, via the funding and tenders portal. We cannot accept proposals that have been sent to us via other means. And then the applications, the proposals must be complete, readable, accessible, and printable. And this is admissibility condition for Horizon Europe. All across Horizon Europe, the proposal must include a plan for exploitation and dissemination of results. You should not be very much worried about this admissibility condition, because if you follow the proposal template that we offer to you in the submission tool, then by answering all the sections that we have in this proposal template, you will include for sure a plan for the exploitation and dissemination of results. You also need to be aware that we, in most of our calls, we have page limits in this proposal. So we cannot accept proposals with unlimited number of pages. And the page limits that we propose, that we have as an admissibility conditions, depends on the type of actions. So I will come later on about what is this type of actions, but if you are familiar with the program, you will already know that we have a limited number of type of actions. The RIAs and IAs. RIAs are research and innovation actions, and IAs is innovation actions. For these two types of actions, the limit is 45 pages. For CSAs, coordination and support actions, the limit is 30 pages. And then when we organize call in two stages, and we will also come back to this, the proposal submitted for the first stage should not be longer than 10 pages. For the calls related to the EIC, European Innovation Council Pathfinder, the limit is 17 pages, but it is also important that we have multiple exceptions to these numbers. So for you to know, you need to take into consideration that when you are submitting a proposal to a given topic, you need to go to these topic conditions and read there what are the exact limit for page numbers. And then these are the admissibility conditions, but we do also have eligibility conditions. So not all organizations are eligible to participate or to receive funding. And this we have already discussed this in previous presentation, but I will cover this more in detail. So when we call for collaborative projects, so these are normally pillar 2 actions and some of the EIC actions, like the Pathfinder. So we ask for a minimum composition of the consortium. The consortium should be composed by a minimum of 3 legal entities and independent from each other, and each established in a different country. And these countries should be coming from the member states or associated countries, and at least one of them should come from a member state. Yeah. These are the minimum composition for a consortia. And then also, and this is a novelty, in Horizon Europe, we have an eligibility condition that does not apply to all participants, but it applies to participants that are public bodies, research organizations or higher education establishments from member states and associated countries. And the condition is that these organizations must have a gender equality plan. We provide information about the minimum requirements that this gender equality plan should have. And at the time you submit a proposal, we just ask you to self-declare whether you have this gender equality plan, whether your organization has this gender equality plan or not. For the time being, you need to declare that your organization has this gender equality plan in 2 places. So for the time being, you need to do it in the participant register, but also at the time you submit a proposal. So this is a situation that is that will be solved soon, we hope, because our goal is that our submission tool will read the information directly from the participant registry, so you have to declare this only once. And then if you submit several proposals in Horizon Europe, you just forget about it. About this gender equality plan, so I already mentioned that at the time of the submission of the proposal and at the time also to the grant preparation, in case your proposal is retained for funding, we will only check whether you have this self-declare that your organization has a gender equality plan. We are not going to validate this or to check whether this is true. But during the life of the project, we will make random checks. So we will have a sample of organizations. We will also contract some experts in the area, and those experts will certainly go to your organizations, or not physically, but probably to the publications, to your web places, and see whether this is true that you have a gender equality plan in place. But then we have already heard from Peter and Maud that we have differences between who is able to participate and who is able to receive funding. So I will come back here with more details. So in Horizon Europe, who is eligible to participate? So as Maud and Peter said before, any legal entity, regardless of its place of establishment, including legal entities from non-associated third countries, are eligible to participate, but with the remark that in some cases, some of them may not be eligible to receive funding. And then also with an important remark that your topic in which you are submitting a proposal may also public specific limitations for that topic. And then I come here with a number of specific cases. So as a novelty in Horizon Europe, so the Joint Research Center, for which Peter already gave you some information, they can be included in proposals, but they cannot be involved in the preparation and submission of the proposals. So once and if the proposal is retained for funding, then at the time of the grant agreement preparation, the Joint Research Center may exceed the grant agreement as beneficiary requesting zero funding, because we, the European Commission, will provide that funding. And they can participate also as associated partners and would accede to the consortium as a member. Then we also have some restrictions. For instance, for the time being, legal entities established in China are not eligible to participate in Horizon Europe innovation actions in any capacity, unless exceptions. We also have some calls that are restricted on participations, and this is clearly announced in the topic conditions, and these are related to EU strategic assets, interests, autonomy, or security of our member states. And then we can also have ad hoc measures or sanctions, and for the time being, and this is only an example, so legal entities established in Russia, Belarus, or in non-government controlled territories of Ukraine are currently not eligible to participate, of course, except exceptions. So for this, it is important to read carefully the topic conditions of the topic you want to submit your proposal, and then these two documents that I publish here, in which you will find up-to-date information. So far for who is eligible for participate, but who is eligible to receive funding? So certainly organizations coming from member states, including their outermost regions and the overseas countries and territories linked to the member states. And also, as we already explained in previous presentation, the countries associated to Horizon Europe. And here you also need to be informed about the different rules that apply to different countries. As Maud explained this morning, New Zealand only associated to Pillar 2, United Kingdom for the time being only possible to receive funding from calls funded with the budget of 2024. And then in addition, we have low to middle income countries that are eligible also to receive funding. And for the list of all those countries, you have here a link to the Horizon Europe program guide, and you will find there the list of countries that are automatically eligible for funding. And then other countries, which are normally rich countries, they are not eligible for country, but it can be exceptions in some calls. So you have to go to the call and see whether there are exceptions that apply only to that call or topic, and also if their participation is considered essential for a given proposal. Then we have also some specific cases. So affiliated entities established in countries eligible for funding are also eligible for funding. All EU bodies are eligible for funding, and then international organizations, only international European research organizations are eligible for funding. Other international organizations are not automatically eligible for funding, but they are only for training and mobility actions, so for Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions. So we have explained who is eligible to participate, who is eligible for funding, but what are the activities eligible for funding? Not everything is eligible for funding in Horizon Europe. Peter already mentioned that Horizon Europe only covered activities focused exclusively on civil applications. And then in addition, these activities, those that you include in your proposal, must not aim at human cloning for reproductive purposes, must not intend to modify the genetic heritage of human beings, which could make such changes heritable, except for research related to cancer treatment of the gonads, must not intend to create human embryons solely for the purpose of research or for the purpose of stem cell procurement, and must not lead to the destruction of human embryos. So these activities cannot be financed in Horizon Europe. And then, depending on the activity or the type of activity, we have also defined in Horizon Europe a limited number of type of actions. So this, we have already used this terminology, type of actions, and here you have a list of all different type of actions that we have in Horizon Europe. So the three first, the research and innovation actions, and coordination and support actions, are the main type of actions that are used in Pillar 2 in Horizon Europe. So research and innovation actions, RIAs, are activities to establish new knowledge or to explore the feasibility of a new or improved technology, product, processes, service, or solution. Innovation actions are activities to produce plans and arrangements or designs for new, alter, or improved products, processes, or services. So innovation actions are more close to the exploitation, more close to the market than the activities financed via the research and innovation actions. Coordination and support actions are does in general not include research activities, with one exception for widening for the widening part of the program, and these are activities that contribute to the objectives of Horizon Europe, so coordination and support activities. Then we have the program co-fund actions, which is a program of activities established or implemented by legal entities managing or funding research and innovation programs other than EU funding bodies. This, I think, already Peter mentioned about these co-fund partnerships. Then we have innovation and market deployment actions, which are the activities of European Innovation Council, very close to the market. We have also the training and mobility actions, which are the activities to improve the skills, knowledge, and career prospects of researchers. And these are the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. And then we have all, two types of actions, which were also there in previous framework programs, which are the pre-commercial procurement actions and public procurement of innovation actions. When you select a topic, the type of actions that apply to this topic is clearly announced in the topic. So, of course, you cannot use which type of actions to send your proposal. This is specified in the topic conditions. And then we also have the standard maximum funding rates, which depends on the type of action. So for research and innovation action, the funding rate is 100%. For innovation action is 70%, except for non-profit legal entities where we fund at 100% funding rate. For coordination and support actions, the funding rate is 100%. For program co-fund actions is between 30 and 70%. For innovation and market deployment is 70%, except for non-profit legal entities where the funding rate is 100%. For training and mobility actions, 100%. For pre-commercial procurement actions, 100%. And for public procurement of innovative solutions is 50%. But again, these are the maximum funding rates. So the real funding rate that applies to your topics is clearly announced in the topic conditions. So far, the general rules for participation. So let's go a bit more in details into the submission process. So already Olivier announced what is the structure of our application form. In this slide, if you click into this icon, you will have a link to the standard proposal templates that we published in the portal. But it is important for you to know that those standard templates that we publish in the portal are only for your information. So the real template that you need to use is the one that you download from the submission system once you have selected the topic. This, please take care or be very careful with this, because these templates that you download from the submission system may include additional questions that you need to answer for this specific topic, so can be adapted to the topic in which you are submitting your proposal. It will not be very different than the standard template that we publish in the portal, but it may include extra information or extra questions. So as Olivier announced, the proposal includes two main parts, what we call Part A and the Part B. The Part A is based on web-based forms and is generated automatically by the IT system with the information that you type in the submission system. And the Part B is the narrative part of the proposal, is where you explain to us what are you going to do, what you propose to do to answer our call for proposals. And you need to upload it as a PDF, and this is the document that is subject to page limit, only the Part B of the proposal. So in the Part A, what are the questions that you need to answer in our web-based form? So first, you need to give us general information of the proposal, so the title, the acronym, the abstract, the duration that you propose, and also the keywords. Please pay attention to the keywords, because this will be an important element that we will use to select our experts that will evaluate the proposal. So this is something that sometimes participants do not pay sufficient attention, but is a very critical part of this submission. So pay attention to these keywords that you include in your proposal. Then you have to give us information about the participants, so the organization details, etc. But if your participant, if your organization is already registered in our participant registry, then you need only to type the PIC, and then we will retrieve all the information that we have in our database. So you don't need to type anything, with the exception, and we hope that this will finish very soon, about the self-declaration on the gender equality plan, that you still need to flag it here also in the proposal. In the part A, you also give us the budget of the proposal, so the distribution between the different participants and also between the different cost categories. And then you need to answer some questions about the ethics and security. We will come back to this. It's a kind of self-assessment on whether your proposal will raise some ethics concerns or security concerns. And then depending on the topic, you will also need to answer some other questions about, for instance, clinical trials, or in the case you are submitting a proposal in a two-stages call, then some questions related for the second stage of the proposal. And then finally, the call coordinator will have to sign some flag or confirm some declarations on behalf of the consortium. So this is the part A, done entirely in the tool, and then the part B, which is the PDF, the document that you upload into the submission system. So I repeat it again, because this is very important. We find many mistakes here. Please use the template that you download in the submission system for that specific topic. Do not use, please, the standard templates that we publish in the reference documents of the portal. This template, I think, is probably the main source of information for you, because we include there extensive instructions, and also some tables that you need to include that will help you to elaborate a proposal which is clear, and it will be easy to evaluate, and it will also be easy for you to demonstrate that your proposal will have an impact. So the template includes many instructions that are very important for you to follow. And then I repeat again, this is the document that is subject to page limits, and the page limits applied automatically. So if you submit or upload to the system a document with more pages than the page limit that applies to this topic, then you will receive a message informing you that you are uploading a document which exceeds the page limit, and then you need to change it and submit another document that complies with this requirement. If you don't do so, the extra pages will be made invisible and will not be taken into consideration by the evaluators. So you need to be also very careful with this. And what are the evaluation criteria in Horizon Europe? This is also a very critical and important information that you should know. We try to apply the same evaluation criteria with the same also sub-criteria in most of the parts of Horizon Europe. Some of them have different evaluation criteria, but always around the three main criteria, which are excellence, impact, and quality and efficiency of the implementation. So for instance, for the European Innovation Council and for the Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions, the sub-criteria that are included in this criteria may vary, so they are adapted of the type of action. But in Pillar 2, so for RIAs, research and innovation actions, and coordination actions, all the calls normally use the standard evaluation criteria. If you are familiar with previous programs, so we have made some changes in this evaluation criteria in Horizon Europe. So for instance, the open science practices in Horizon 2020 was evaluated as a part of the impact criterion. In Horizon Europe, we evaluated as part of the excellence because we consider that open sciences should be an important part of your scientific methodology. So it is evaluated under excellence criterion. We also have a new approach to impact that we call the key impact pathways. So Peter already mentioned these key impact pathways. That's these 9 impact areas in which we want to make an impact. The whole program wants to make an impact on those 9 areas. But in order for us to make impact on those 9 areas, we need to fund projects that make impact in those areas. So you also need to give us information about how are you going to contribute to these key impact pathways. But the key impact pathways, I will come back later with more information, is a methodology that we apply in Horizon Europe. But the objective is not new, so it's exactly the same as in previous framework programs. We asked you to demonstrate that your proposal will make an impact. What we are trying to do also with the instructions that you see in the proposal template is to guide you and to help you to demonstrate that your proposal will make an impact, and also that this impact is visible for the experts that will evaluate your proposal. I will come back later with more information. Then in Horizon Europe, we didn't evaluate the operational capacity of individual applicants. It was just an assessment that we did after the evaluation with possible answers yes or no. But we do now evaluate this, the operational capacity of each applicant as part of the 3rd evaluation criterion, which is quality of the implementation. And then in the past, we were also evaluating the management structures. This we don't do anymore, but it doesn't mean that you don't need to include information about the management structures in your proposal. You do. We ask for this information, but it will not be evaluated. So we consider that the management structures that we receive in proposals, this is an analysis that we have done in Horizon 2020, is very good in almost 100% of the cases. Yeah. So this is the reason we don't evaluate anymore, but you still need to give us this information, and the place that you need to give this information is in the description of the work program that you dedicate to the management of the proposal. So these are the evaluation criteria as an example for the research and innovation actions and innovation actions. As I said, 3 main evaluation criteria: excellence, impact, and quality and efficiency of the implementation. Under excellence, we evaluate the clarity and pertinence of the project objectives, and we also evaluate the soundness of the proposed methodology. This is the scientific methodology. With 2 main remarks, we asked you to take into consideration the gender dimension in research and innovation content when you design this scientific methodology, and you also need to take into consideration open science practices when you design the scientific methodology. Of course, this is a collaborative project. In most of the cases, we also ask you to propose actions that cover interdisciplinary approaches. But for this, you will have more information in the topic description. On impact, so we will evaluate, the experts will evaluate what is the credibility of the pathways to achieve the impact that you propose into the proposal, and also the suitability and quality of the measures to maximize the expected outcomes and impacts. In other ways, the quality of your dissemination and exploitation plan, including communication activities. and their quality and efficiency of the implementation. So we will evaluate the quality and effectiveness of the work plan that you propose, and also the capacity and role of each participant and the consortium as a whole, and of course the resources that you propose in the project. One important thing is that all these aspects are assessed to the extent that the proposed work is within the scope of the work program topic. This is very important, in particular for Pillar 2, in which we have a top-down approach. We describe in the topic what exactly we are asking you to do in the proposals that you submit to this topic. So you may present an excellent proposal with a very high impact, but if this is not in line with the activities that we are asking in this topic, then the proposal will not be evaluated good, because all the work is assessed against what we are asking in the topic condition. So this is very important for you to take into consideration. So what are the key principles that you need to take into consideration when you start to write a proposal? So these are very general principles, but I think these are very important and cover exactly what you need to do. So in your proposal, you need to propose a work that must be within the scope of the topic, and also to answer the expected outcomes and impacts described in the topic. You need to demonstrate that your idea is ambitious and goes beyond the state of the art. This is evaluated under the excellence criteria. Your scientific methodology must take into account interdisciplinary gender dimension in research and innovation content and open science practices. This is also evaluated as part of the excellence criteria. You should show how your project should contribute to the outcomes and impacts described in the work program, the pathway to impact. This is evaluated under the impact criterion, and you should describe the planned measures to maximize the impact of your project, the plan for the dissemination and exploitation, including communication activities. And finally, you should demonstrate the quality of your work plan, that you have sufficient resources to do what you plan to do, and the quality of the participants in your project. These are the main principles that you need to take into consideration when you start writing a proposal. In addition, there are a number of policy and horizontal considerations that you always need to take into account. I already mentioned two of them: the open science across the program and the gender dimension and in research and innovation content. But there are others, and you need to read carefully the topic conditions to know exactly which policy and cross-cutting aspects you need to take into consideration. For instance, a large number of topics, we also ask you to take into account social science and humanities, the integration of social science and humanities in your proposal. So I will mention some of them to give you more details. So I will start with the open science across the program, gender dimension, the pathway to impact, the measures to maximize the impact, and some information about artificial intelligence, which is also, so you need to take into consideration some important elements here. So open science across the program. Peter already mentioned, give you already some information, and then as Peter said, open science is an approach based on open cooperative work and systematic sharing of knowledge and tools as early as and widely as possible in the process, including active engagement of society. This is very important when you plan your scientific methodology. One of the elements of this open science is the mandatory publications of your results in open access journals. So this is an obligation in our Horizon Europe program. You need to publish your results. If you want to publish, of course, you want to retain the rights for exploitation. But if you are ready to publish your results, you must do it in an open access journal. And then you also need to share the data, but the condition here is that you have to do it, you have to be as open as possible, as and cannot read this, and yeah, as open as possible and as unnecessary. So some information about this, the work program topic description may incentivize or oblige you to adhere to open science practices, such as the involvement of citizens or to use the European Open Science Cloud. The European Open Science Cloud is a project, a pan-European project created to share and access research data. This is in a virtual environment, and this is covering all the disciplines that we fund in Horizon Europe. It might be an obligation in the topic condition that you have to make use of it, so it is important that you read the topic description. The assessment of open science practices, as I already mentioned, is evaluated under the excellence criteria, but you also need to take into account that in the third criteria, in the quality of the implementation, when the evaluators will assess the quality of the participants, previous experience on open science practices will be evaluated positively. We also have some dedicated support to open science policy actions, and we also have developed the Open Research Europe publishing platform. Is a platform in which you can publish your results, and when you do so, when you make use of this Open Research European publishing platform, you make sure that you are in compliance with all the open access obligations in Horizon Europe. About the gender dimension in research and innovation content, I hope by this time, because we have presented this in many events, I hope that by this time is clear what we are asking here. This is not about gender balance. This is about addressing the gender dimension in research and innovation in your research work. So you have here a number of examples on why gender dimension is important. So, for instance, it will be important if you are proposing some actions related to the COVID-19 pandemic. It will be important to take into account why do we observe differences between women and men in infection levels and mortality rates in this pandemic. Another example is, for instance, does it make sense to design car safety equipment only on the basis of male body standards? Another example that you make for which will help you to understand what we mean with gender dimension in research and innovation content is, for instance, did you know that pheromones given off by men experimenters but not women induce a stress response in laboratory mice sufficient to trigger pain relief? So these are the things that we are taking into account when we ask you to consider the gender dimension in research and innovation content. The difference in Horizon Europe about this aspect is that in the previous framework program in Horizon 2020, we were saying very clearly in every topic when it was obligatory to take into account the gender dimension in your proposal. So the approach in Horizon Europe has changed, and we consider that gender dimension should be taken into account by default in all topics, and we announce only whether this is not relevant in your topic if this is the case. So if your topic doesn't mention anything, then you need to consider the gender dimension in research and innovation content and research and innovation in your proposal. If for whatever reason you still consider that the gender dimension considerations are not applicable in your proposal, then you also need to justify why it is not the case. So you need to consider in any case. Yeah. So for the impact, so what we call the project's pathway towards impact. So as I mentioned, nothing new. So we had been asking you to explain in your proposal what will be the impact that your project results will have. And there is nothing different in Horizon Europe. We are still asking the same. However, we know, because we have analyzed or we have considered the lessons learned and also the feedback that we receive from applicants and from experts, that it is very difficult for applicants to demonstrate the impact, and it is also very difficult for evaluators to evaluate the impact in a proposal. So when we were preparing Horizon Europe, we took seriously this feedback, and what we have done in Horizon Europe is just trying to help you to demonstrate in the proposal template how to demonstrate your impact, and also to help evaluators to evaluate your impact. And this is what we call the project's pathway towards impact. So in the proposal template, you will also need to include a kind of table in which we will ask you a lot of elements about the project results that you expect to obtain in your project, and what will be the contribution of this project result to the expected outcome and to the expected impact. So this expected outcome and impact, so it's not whatever. Your proposal could have an impact in many areas, but what you need to address is the expected outcome that we publish in the topic condition, and the same for the expected impact. So the expected outcome is the effects that your project results will have at a medium term. So these are normally effects that the results of your projects will have shortly after the end of the project. And we already mentioned what we expect from the projects that we are going to fund from this topic. So we are asking you to read those expected outcomes and to tell us how are you going to contribute to these expected outcomes. The same for the expected impact, but then the effects are at a longer term. And these are effects on society, including the environment, the economy, or the science, as these are the main areas that we have or we want to have an impact with the Horizon Europe program. So you need to read carefully what are the expected impacts that we expect from the projects that we fund in this topic, and then give us an answer on how your project results will contribute to this expected impact. So for you to know, you are proposing activities. Of course, you foreseen some project results. You have to give us in your proposals what are the results that you expect. In your proposal, you have to give us also what are the measures that you propose to maximize the impact of your proposal, which are the dissemination and exploitation measures. And then after doing these actions, the dissemination and exploitation actions that you propose, you have to give us how your project results will contribute to the expected outcome as described in the topic, and also how your project results will contribute to the expected impact at a longer term, as described in the topic conditions. And this is exactly what we are asking, and this is exactly what you have here an example. You probably have seen this example multiple times, but it's just an example on the way we ask you to describe your impact, and nothing else. So it's a methodology that only tries to help you to describe your impact. So just for you to know, I am saying the same. So as I mentioned, the expected outcome and expected impact are described in the topic conditions. And here is more or less a way of the path that we follow to describe these expected outcomes and impact. So of course, when we start drafting a work program for a certain year, we always start with the EU policy priorities at a higher level. So, for instance, the Green Deal, the Fit for Digital Aid, etc. In Horizon Europe, we define key strategic orientations to have impact in these EU policy priorities. Then we define also the areas in which we need to do something in order to have an impact on the EU policy priorities. And then we also defined what is this expected impact that we want to have and the expected outcome in each topic condition. This is our work. This is what we do. when we define our work program. So we start from the EU policy priorities, and then we finalize with the project results when the project ends. And then for you, you have to start the other way around. So always, of course, taking into account the topic that you are submitting your proposal, but in your proposal, you need to start with the results that you expect from this project and give us how these results will have an impact at a medium term expected outcome and at a longer term, the expected impact. So it's the way we are asking you to do. So about the measures to maximize the impact, which are the dissemination and exploitation, including communication activities. So as I said, this is an admissibility criterion. You always need to give us information about those aspects in the proposal. And so if you follow the proposal template, you will be covered with this admissibility criterion. And then here some elements about the type of information that we are asking you. So of course, we are asking you details about what you plan to disseminate or what you plan to exploit after the project finalizes. But we also ask you to give us information about what will be the target groups that will benefit from your project results. So if it is the scientific community, if it is society, etc., and also the proposed channels to interact with these target groups. We also ask you to give us some information about communication measures to promote the project activities and project results. And in case we can use your results for us to build a policy in different areas, we are also asking you to give us policy feedback, how we can use your policy results to shape the policies that we developed in the European Commission. And then, of course, you are free to decide whether you want to exploit your results, but we also need to ask you to tell us whether you have plans to exploit your results and give us details about how will you manage the intellectual property of these results. These are the elements that we are asking you to include in the proposal. So some words about the do not significant harm principle, that we include also some information in the proposal template. And this is in line with the European Green Deal objectives. Economic activities should not make a significant harm to any of the 6 environmental objectives. This is what we call the EU taxonomy regulation. This also applies to research program. And you need to take into account the 6 environmental objectives, which are climate change mitigation, sustainable use and protection of water and marine resources, pollution prevention and control, climate change adaptation, transition to a circular economy, and protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems. So when we publish our topics, we have already pre-screened the areas in which we call for proposals, and these areas normally respect, well, they should respect the do not significant harm principle. But in any case, the applicants, and you have information in the proposal template, you can refer to this do not significant harm principle in your proposal when presenting your scientific methodology, and also when you explain the impact that your project will have. Also taking into account the 6 environmental objectives. You can give us information about this. However, we will not ask the evaluators to score the proposal in relation to their compliance with the do not significant harm principle. This is the case in Pillar 2 proposals, with and in most of the Horizon Europe calls, with one exception, the section that is closest closer to the market, which is the European Innovation Council. And then some elements about artificial intelligence. So we have here 2 elements about artificial intelligence. So whether you use artificial intelligence in your scientific methodology, so for analysis of data in any of the areas, maybe you also have, or you are proposing some research to advance in artificial intelligence. And we have also some elements about the use of artificial intelligence in writing proposals. So I will try to cover these 3 elements. So on the two first, so when you are making use of artificial intelligence in your scientific methodology, either because you are analyzing data with artificial intelligence in any area, or because you are doing really research on artificial intelligence. So when you do this, then we ask you to demonstrate the technical robustness of the proposed artificial intelligence-based systems that you are going to use or that you are going or planned to develop. So for this, you will have to give us some details about the tools that you are using or plan to develop. And then you need to demonstrate that the tools are technically robust, accurate, and reproducible, that they are socially robust, so that they duly consider the context and environment in which they operate, that they are reliable and function as intended, minimizing unintentional and unexpected harm, preventing unacceptable harm, and safeguarding the physical and mental integrity of humans, and also that they are able to provide a suitable explanation of its decision-making process. So whenever an artificial intelligence-based system can have a significant impact on people's lives. So we are asking you on these elements in your proposal. And then we will also ask our evaluators to take this into consideration. So if they consider that the artificial intelligence is an important part of the scientific methodology, this robustness, technical robustness of the artificial intelligence-based systems will be evaluated as part of the excellence criteria. So this is one of the elements of artificial intelligence, but what about the more and more use of generative artificial intelligence tools in the preparation of proposals? So we are about to release a new version of the proposal template in which we have, or we will add a general disclaimer asking you to be careful when you use generative artificial intelligence tools for the preparation of a proposal. So it has to be clear that the owner and the responsible of the information that you include in the proposal is you, the participants of the project. So you are fully responsible of the content of the proposal, and you are also, or you have also the obligation to citate, so to give us information as in any source of information that you use to generate your proposal, about if you have used generative artificial intelligence tools to prepare your proposal and which one. So you will be required to verify the accuracy, validity, and appropriateness of the content and any citations generated by the artificial intelligence tool. And then, of course, you need to correct any errors of inconsistency. Again, you are the fully responsible of the content in the proposal. You also need to provide a list of the sources used to generate the content and citations. As normal, we are always asking you to give a list of references. This will be one of them. And we are also asking you to be conscious of the potential for plagiarism, where the artificial intelligence tool may have reproduced substantial text from other sources without citation. So please check the original sources and be sure that you are not plagiarizing someone else's work. And then, of course, we are asking you to acknowledge the limitations of the artificial intelligence tool in the proposal preparation, including for the potential for bias, errors, and gaps in knowledge. So this is a disclaimer that is not yet in our proposal template that we publish in the portal, but it will be very soon. So I finish here my part, so I give the floor to Izabela. Yes.
Thank you very much, Isabel. I hope I'm well understood and heard, and I think it works very well. Just a short information before my part of the presentation. We'll have a test fire alarm in exactly 3 minutes. So just to be aware, if you will not hear me for a second, but nevertheless, we can start already. And as already mentioned, I will present to you today the evaluation process in Horizon Europe. And we'll start with information that is probably very important to you. It's the information about when can you expect feedback from the European Commission regarding your proposal. So we have the time to inform and time to grant. In both cases, these deadlines start from the counting of the time frame starts with the call deadline, so the call closure. It is not the moment where you submit your proposal that the timer starts running, it's the call deadline. We have a 5 months maximum time frame for time to inform. So this is where you should receive feedback regarding your proposal. And we have the 8 months time to grant, counting again from the call closure when you until the signature of the grant agreement. So we also, I think, with the as you see in the slides, it's very nicely visualized. And this is just to start off and then kind of show you what kind of the time frame is that you can expect. So then we'll move further to the type of calls and also the modalities of the evaluation process in itself. So you can also have a better overview what kind of calls you can expect in Horizon Europe. Our standard call is a single stage call, which means that you submit your proposal, a full proposal in a single submission. And also the evaluation process will concern all 3 evaluation criteria that Isabel described beforehand. We have also, in comparison to the single stage call, the 2-stage call, which, as the name already says, we have a first stage where a short proposal, the applicant will be asked to submit a short proposal, and the evaluation of this short proposal will only concern the excellence and the impact criterion. So this is the first stage, and for those applicants who pass the threshold of the stage 1, will be invited to submit a full proposal in stage 2, and the evaluation of this full proposal in stage 2 will then concern all 3 evaluation criteria. We move then to the multi-steps calls. So these are calls where it's a single stage call. So the submission it's a single submission of a full proposal. But then we have the differences in the evaluation process itself because the evaluation will be carried out in steps. We have included here an example, but it's only an example. There are many modalities that can take place here. So for example, in step 1, we have the evaluation of one criterion, for example, excellence, and only those proposals that will be above a threshold, they will be then moved to the next step, where the evaluation will be taken with regards to the criterion of impact and quality of implementation. Important to keep in mind that if a proposal will not pass the threshold of the evaluation in step 1, the applicant will only receive feedback on this one particular criterion that was evaluated in step 1. So to come back to the example, step 1, evaluation of excellence, and the feedback will only concern criterion 1, which is of course excellence. Other examples, also include evaluations where you have hearings or also interviews. So this is also possible. Then another type would be the calls with multiple cutoff dates. So these are calls which are continuously open. Of course, they have a final closure date, but in general, you can submit your proposal to such call at any given time. However, there are certain cutoff dates already predetermined that will trigger the evaluation of the submitted proposal up until a certain cutoff date. You can find this in the Horizon EIC accelerator calls, for example, again. So this is to give you, again, an overview what kind of what kind of calls we have, and also the evaluation modalities. We move forward, but still, before coming to the evaluation process in itself and really going through the particular phases, we would like to present to you the guiding principles in the evaluations in Horizon Europe, as they are very important, and also, as the name say, they guide throughout the through the evaluations. First of all, excellence. Here we refer, of course, to the excellence of the proposals. They have to demonstrate a very high quality when it comes to the topics and the criteria that are set out in the call conditions. Then transparency. What we have here in mind is that the funding decisions that are being taken, they're done based on clearly defined rules and procedures. Applicants should also receive adequate feedback on their proposal, on the outcome also of the evaluation. So this is very important as well. Of course, fairness and impartiality. All submitted proposals to a call must be treated equally. They have to be evaluated impartially based on their merits, regardless of their origin or on the identity of the applicant. Efficiency and speed, this ties in nicely with my first slide where we presented you the time to inform. The process, evaluation process, award, grant preparation, this has to be performed as quickly as possible. Of course, on the other hand, not neglecting any rules, not compromising the quality of the process. So this is really also to keep the balance there. Ethics and security. This is also again to say again what also already Isabel mentioned, that all funded research innovation activities that will be carried out have to be compliant with fundamental ethical principles. They have to be compliant with the applicable rules on ethics and security. And I will mention this also in a later part of my presentation share with you some more concrete information there. Of course, confidentiality. This concerns proposals, but not only. It's all information, data, documents must be treated confidentially. What we do is also that experts that take part in the evaluations, they are bound by an obligation of confidentiality. So this is also to ensure this. And last but not least, data protection. Personal data must be processed under the EU data protection regulation. So this is, before moving more into the specifics of the evaluation process, these principles will guide us and have to be always kept in mind throughout the process. And here we have already our first slide with more information on the evaluation process in Horizon Europe in itself. So how it works basically in Horizon Europe, that proposals are evaluated by independent external experts. There are some exceptions to these rules for EIC, missions, or CSAs. However, this is the general rule that these are evaluated by external experts, of course, against the clear criteria that are included in the work program. At this point, I would also like to already mention the call for expression of interest in becoming a EU expert. It is an continuously open call in the Fundings and Tenders portal, and in the end of my presentation will include some more information where to find it and how to apply. So coming back to the evaluation process, it's each of the proposals will be evaluated by a minimum of 3 experts, but in many cases we have more than 3 experts per proposal included. They have then, so these individual experts, they have to come up with a common position regarding each proposal. And so each proposal they worked on individually. And this common position is then the basis of the feedback that we'll share with the participant. So the panel of evaluators will come up also with a ranking of the proposals, and then based on the available budget in the call or in the topic, there will be the decisions taken regarding each of every proposal. And the decisions that can be taken are whether the proposal will be retained for funding, will be placed on a reserve list, will be rejected because of not enough budget available in the call, and rejected because of the low quality of the proposal in itself. And because I already mentioned here the independent experts, we would like to also explain to you also the role of an independent observer that we have included in all Horizon Europe evaluations. Again, there are some exceptions where it would be simply disproportionate to have another observer, but an observer in general. But the rule is that all Horizon Europe evaluations have at least one or more of these independent observers. So the role of this person is to follow the whole evaluation. So they start with even before the evaluation itself, with a briefing of the experts up until the panel review, and they have also access to all the documents. So they have a really good overview of the whole process, and this is also their role and their task to check the functioning and the execution of the process in general terms overall. They also are there to verify whether participants are compliant with the procedures of the evaluation process. And because they're also observe, as the name says, because they also observe the evaluation sessions, they can advise on the conduct and on the fairness of these sessions. They can also see how do the evaluators apply the criteria, and where is space for possible improvements of the procedures. And because of their independent role, they're also able to liaise with the staff members that are participating in the evaluation session, so internal staff members. And if necessary, of course, if it's needed in this particular case, they can suggest possible corrections that can be even be done immediately, or of course also for future evaluation. So really to improve the process where necessary. And without further ado, I will also present you the individual phases of the standard evaluation process. As I mentioned already before, first the proposals are evaluated individually by experts, a minimum of 3 experts per proposal, but possible more. The next phase would be the consensus group. So individual experts discuss and they have to decide on a common position for each of the proposals they have been working on previously or evaluating individually previously. And this includes comments and scores. The next phase would be the panel review. So here we have a panel of experts that comes to an agreement on the scores and comments for all proposals within the call, which is also very important from the point of view that this allows to make sure there's a consistency across all the evaluations. So this is a very important point as well. This is also the point in time where, if it is necessary, the panel resolves cases where evaluators couldn't agree previously on a common position of the proposal. How this is exactly done, this will follow on the next slide, because there's this very particular criteria to follow. At this time, the panel also ranked the proposals with the same score, and so this will follow. And in the last part, so this is the finalization, and the commission or agency reviews the results of the evaluations prepared by the experts and puts together a final ranking list. So what will follow now is we will see how the proposal with the same score are ranked, and this will follow on the next slide, because this here this is especially important for those proposals that are around the budget threshold. When we talk about identical scores, we of course mean proposals which for each of the criterions, and then counted together, they came up with an equal score. So first of all, the highest priority is given to proposals that address aspects of the call that have not been otherwise covered by more highly ranked proposals. So this is the first step to take and to identify the proposals that have to be prioritized. If among those prioritized proposals we still have multiple proposals to rank, evaluators are asked to look into the scores for particular evaluation criterion. So in general, if a proposal will have a higher score in excellence in comparison to others, this proposal will be given priority. Later, the scores under impact will be compared. But there is a difference for innovation actions, where priority will be given to proposals with a high score in impact, and then followed by the score in excellence. If still necessary, so we still have multiple proposals to be ranked, we looked at the gender balance, which is understood as the personnel named in the proposal who will be primarily responsible for carrying out the research activities and who are also included in the researcher table. Further on, if still necessary, evaluators are asked to look at the geographical diversity. Here it's defined as the number of member states and associated countries represented in the proposal, not otherwise receiving funds from projects higher up in the ranking. And if by any case it is still not possible to complete the ranking, there is flexibility to take into account other factors related to the objectives of the call of the Horizon Europe in general. But this is this would be the last criterion. But these are the 5 cases to take into account and to go from number 1 to the next ones. And then we move to 2 points that I already mentioned before, which Isabel mentioned and I mentioned during the guiding principles part. It's the ethics review and the security scrutiny. So here for ethics review, this is the process is carried out systematically in all Horizon Europe proposals, and this is based on a self-assessment included in the proposal. So again, to ensure that it's really taken into account, and ethical compliance is really essential in research. So we want also to do the appropriate reviews from our side. And this is then also similar for security scrutiny. There is a change between Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe, because now in Horizon Europe we have a self-assessment included in all the proposals. And this self-assessment focuses on whether the proposal uses or generates EU classified information, if there's potential for misuse of the results, and whether activities or information or materials are subject to national security restrictions. So this is based on a self-assessment. This was not in the past. In Horizon 2020, only proposals submitted to topics flagged as security sensitive were checked. And in Horizon Europe, we have the self-assessment, which of course can trigger a more in-depth security scrutiny, but this is then as a next step. And we'll slowly come back to closer to my presentation, but also to the end of the evaluation process, and this is the feedback to applicants. And as already mentioned in the first slides, we have the time to inform of 5 months after call deadline, and this is when applicants will receive the feedback, which is an evaluation result letter, including also the evaluation summary report. The outcome of the evaluation, as mentioned, can be that the proposal is retained for funding, is put on a reserve list, is rejected because no sufficient budget is available in the call, or rejected because of low quality. Just to also for your information that there's a slight difference in two-stage calls where applicants are informed about so when an applicant is successful in this first stage, they will be of course informed about this outcome and invited to the second stage. However, they will not receive the evaluation summary report from stage 1. There will be, after stage 1, there will be a generalized feedback published in the portal, but the evaluation summary report will be only sent to the applicants so the ESR from stage 1 will be sent together with the ESR for stage 2. So this is just a little difference here to keep in mind. And then we also come close to my last slide, and this is also already mentioned, the continuously open call for expression of interest to become an EU expert. We have included a link here in the slides where to register, but you see also on the screen where to find it, and we can only encourage you to take a look and consider register in the database for EU experts. So from this side, from my side, it will be all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Izabela. Thank you very much, Isabel. We have some questions for you. And if I can see them on the screen, we'll start with the first one. It's about gender equality plan. Why only public bodies need a gender equality plan? Isabel,
Well,
are you answering that?
Yes, I will try to answer. Well, the policy on gender is defined by a unit that have contacts with member states and define all the policy around gender in Horizon Europe. And they decided to start with this requirement on gender equality plan in Horizon Europe, and for the time being applies only to public bodies and research organizations. But this doesn't mean that this will not change in the future. Yeah, but for the time being, that was the decision that the policy actors took for Horizon Europe. Yeah.
Thank you. Next question is that in certain Horizon calls, collaboration with JRC are strongly encouraged. Would that mean that we should include them for better evaluation? Probably that's for you, Izabela.
I think that this is also for Isabel.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I can cover it. No, you have to read exactly what is written. It's strongly encouraged, but if you don't need, if you are proposing now a work and you don't see the need to involve the Joint Research Center, you don't have to do it, and it will not be evaluated with a lower scores than a proposal that include the Joint Research Center. So you have to read exactly what is written in the topic condition. If it is not written that is an obligation, then the evaluation will not penalize if the Joint Research Center is not there.
Thank you. Is it possible to participate to the reviewing process as neutral observer just to gain experience in this process?
Maybe I can also cover, no, we contract observers, and we contract the observers from our experts database. Yeah, and yeah. So maybe if we select you from the database, we will have the possibility. But no, you cannot express your interest here. So.
There used to be a section in Part B, for ethics. Now there are questions in Part A with space for justification, but still ask for page number mandatory. How?
I can also cover this, Manuel, because I understand exactly what it means. Yes, I am aware that we are asking for page numbers where the information is in Part A, so we don't have page number. Yes, please disregard this request and do not fill this field in the proposal Part A.
Thank you.
We'll try to correct it.
Sorry. Is there an estimated timeline for a rebuttal? My application was desk rejected. Upon rebuttal, was deemed eligible, but it has been more than 1 year.
Maybe I can cover also this because I think you are an applicant of an EIC accelerator call in which we previously offered the possibility to have a rebuttal as part of the evaluation. You need to contact via the help desk to the call coordinator and ask the situation of your proposal. This I cannot give you more information than that. Yeah. So please contact via the help desk about the status of your proposal.
Is there a revised evaluation guidance for reviewers around the blind evaluation? Can we see it? Where?
I can take this question. No, there's no such thing as a revised evaluation guidance. We have included the guidance in the proposal template, and we will use this also for future calls.
Thank you. The principle "do not significant harm" is mentioned in the EIC work program. So what is the exception of EIC compared to Pillar 2? Isabel, I think that's for you.
Yes, so I try to explain the exception. So in Pillar 2 proposals, we are asking you to include information about the do not significant harm principle in the proposal, but we are not asking the evaluators to evaluate whether you are in compliance with this principle or not. The difference is that in the EIC calls, they will do. So the evaluators will assess whether the proposals will be in compliance with this principle.
Thank you. Another question is, how long does stage 1 evaluation take? Is the 5 months after each step submission? For you?
For Isabel, I think just to...
Yes. For the stage 1, indeed, we try to organize and send the evaluation results as soon as possible. But normally in stage 1, we have many proposals and we have still the time to inform maximum 5 months, yes.
Thank you. In terms of gender equality plan, do NGOs count as a public body or are they exempt from needing a plan?
I think for the NGOs, the best thing that you can do is to go to the participant register and check whether you are flagged as a public body or not when the entity is validated. So the requirement for the gender equality plan does not mention NGOs, it mentions public bodies. So this is as far as I can answer this. Yeah. So please go to your data and check whether at the time we validate your entity, it was flagged as a public body. Yeah.
We have another question now, also about GIP. Also, private research organizations need a GIP. If so, what is the decisive factor, the PIC code, and what are they classified as private company and not REC?
Well, I can answer the second part. Yes, so private research organizations are also included in this requirement. They also need to have a gender equality plan. But I don't understand the first question about the PIC code. Yeah. So, but I think this will answer the main question. Yeah.
Okay, next question. For a third country partner with own funding, should we give extra justification on the bid or what they are more appropriate versus similar EU-based organizations?
No, so participants coming from countries not eligible for funding, they are welcome if they are not restrictions in the call. No, you have just need to explain in the proposal what will be the activities that you will perform, what are the resources that you bring, and also you maybe should give some information about that the budget that you have, that you will receive to perform the activities that you propose is secured. So that if in case the proposal is retained, that we do not depend on whether you get the funding, that you still need to get the funding from another source. Yeah.
Thank you. Another question. If we have 60% of women, should we fire some of them to get closer to gender balance?
Well, I see the irony here. I always answer this question that you need to put this in perspective. And I believe this is what we have been trying to do. The proposals are evaluated on their merits. You will have some scores. If your proposal is very good, it will be evaluated very good. So you don't need to fire anybody. But in case, and only if the budget threshold falls in a group of proposals with the same score, then we start applying some criteria to rank those proposals. We are talking about proposals that have been evaluated and they are of the same quality. So they are very, very similar proposals regarding the quality. They have the same score. Yeah. And not only that, so they are also, because the first criteria that Isabela mentioned is that we look into the area. So if the area has not been covered by by higher rank proposals, then you will be first in the order. Then we look into the scores of the individual criteria, and then is when we applied the gender balance criterion. So we are talking about proposals that have the same scores, are covering areas that are probably not new, already covered by higher rank proposals, and they also have the same scores in the individual criterion. So really, these are very similar proposals, and we have to apply some criteria to rank them. And the gender balance was selected as one of the policy aspects important in Horizon Europe. I hope you agree. And this is the criterion that we use. But please put in perspective, we only use this when we have no other way to rank proposals. We are talking about very similar proposals regarding the quality of them. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We are approaching 1 o'clock. Actually, we should close now. There are a couple of replies actually to your replies about the rebuttal. I don't know if you want to comment something. They have already contacted the project officer, called the EU, contacted the IT help desk. The website says new rebuttals can delete the original. I don't know if you want to comment on that. Otherwise, we close the session.
It's difficult for me to comment because this certainly relates to the EIC accelerator call. You know that in the last months there had been a change of submission tool, so there had been some overloaded officers inside the executive agency. So I can only advise you to keep insisting and contact the officers via the IT help desk. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Thank you, Izabela. Also, I think we have to close now. I want to thank all the speakers. I want to thank the technical people who are behind actually the scenes. We have Dominica, who is following Slido. Olivier and Gino are here in the controls of the studio. And especially I want to thank all of you for attending, for being here today. The next Horizon Implementation Day will be on the 17th of October. It's a Tuesday, if I remember correctly. It will be on grant agreement preparation. So I hope to see you there. Have a nice day.